All right. So we will start at 5:30. If you'd like to do a roll call.
Yep. Ms. Forge?
Here.
Mr. Unger?
Here.
Mr. Waller?
Here.
Mr. McElravy?
Here.
Mr. Miller?
Here.
Mr. Morvick?
Here.
And I myself am here.
All right. You have in front of you an agenda. I don't see a motion to adopt, but we'll go ahead and do a motion to adopt the agenda as provided.
I motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
I will second it.
Are there any questions, comments, discussions with regard to that motion?
None for me.
Hearing and seeing none, we will call for a vote, sir.
Ms. Forge?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes?
Mr. McElravy?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Morvick?
Yes.
And yes.
All right, that passes 7-0. All right, new approval of minutes. So you've been provided in your board packet the minutes from the previous February 13th, 2024 meeting. Are there any motions at this time?
I'll make a motion that we accept the minutes from the last meeting as presented.
All right, we have a motion to present. Any
I
seconds?
will second that motion.
All right, I'm sorry, a motion to approve and a second to approve. Any questions, comments, concerns with regard to the minutes?
None for me.
All right, hearing and seeing none, I'll call for a vote.
Ms. Forge?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Mr. McElravy?
Yes.
Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Morvick?
Yes.
And yes.
All right,
Have these
that-
to sign at the end.
All right, that passes 7-0. And we'll go straight to new business, the status on the sale of the fire training center. And I imagine, Mr. Miller, you have,
I do have a brief report on that. As you recall, the Colerain Township Board of Trustees has deeded that to the C.I.C. And so we have placed that out on the market ourselves, and offered it for sale. So it's available in a variety of places and individuals that we sent information to. I have shown it
10.
5 different organizations and individuals. I have one that's wanting to make a revisit, bring their entire corporate team out there. A couple of construction companies, a machine shop. Interesting enough, 2 neighbors of the property, one being a Dave Westerbeck, abuts the property, and then Mark Faring. So they're both neighbors. Dave Westerbeck and his brothers own and operate 3 Eli's Barbecue, and so they were looking at it as a potential new site for some type of entertainment or redevelopment possibility. And then Mr. Faring is neighbor, and I think he's just curious, and I think he just wants to potentially be able to control what goes on next door, if he was to make an offer and complete the sale. So at this point in time, we have no offers on the table. It is listed on our website as being available through April the 30th. And at that time, we will convene a meeting of the C.I.C. to review any offers in hand and make a decision as to what might be highest and best offer. If there was nothing that was acceptable to the board, we would have the option of, taking another route. One of those might be listing it with a specific realtor organization. That was another showing that I did have. So that's 6 showings so far. And so this particular realtor has a specialty in commercial properties and has a lot of interest in showing that for a sale fee, of course. So would broaden the reach, I would imagine, and eyeballs that would have a chance to look at it. So at this time, I did advise them that it was the board's decision to offer it for sale on our own and see what kind of offers we get, and then we could circle back to them if there was interest later on.
so the second showing you spoke of, without giving away to me the name of the firm, what is the nature of their business?
There were 2 construction companies, and then there was a machine shop.
And they both are going through a second time?
The construction company is going to go through for a second time.
Okay. And it just, again, I'm asking you to be real vague here on the gauge of interest in some of the others that went through.
The second visit clearly would be the highest interest.
Right.
I would expect an offer from them. They've just been busy. Maybe they're working on some kind of proposal. But I had a second showing scheduled, and then they just decided to put that off because they had something else come up that they needed to attend to.
Welcome to the world of real estate.
Yeah. So both of the construction companies would relocate onto a larger parcel. And so
To let the public know, there's 8 acres, almost 9,
8.7 acres.
8.7. And it's a beautiful setting, beautiful acreage, and the building is astronomically engineered, something that I've never seen before.
It is the former P&G data center.
And you could tell that there was multiple engineers on that job. Wow. And it's
Like
one,
12, 15-inch thick walls.
it's amazing.
It could take a nuclear bomb, I think.
And the realtor that came through gave you a different perspective on its worth if we put it on the open market, correct?
Right. It was interesting to hear his perspective that a building this size, and to make the numbers easy, at 20,000 square feet, it's just short of that, 19 plus. He just said, I think it ought to be at $60 a square foot. So 60 times 20 would be 1.2 mil. So that was kind of where he,
Perspective.
so.
Well, he's also trying to get a list.
I get that, but when you go through that, it's if somebody wants to build a manufacturing plant, they couldn't build that for anywhere near 1.2. Absolutely not in that,
For the purchase, right?
yeah.
So,
Was there any conversation about them bringing their client forward with a reduced fee, if they in fact had one, before it went publicly listed? Is that?
well,
something
this
else?
is actually a realtor who he would list it, and then he just said, here's, our fee is 7%.
Yeah.
So,
But he didn't have a client imminent
No.
that said,
Not
when it's listed, I'll bring that to the table.
no.
I think with his perspective and his background of what he does, I think and by listing it on the open market, you're going to have this much market for what our little website says,
All good.
Yeah, I went,
I was just
I
asking
was,
for clarification.
I did not think that the value was there until I went to it, and I went, oh my, it was quite impressive.
So what would be the process if you were going to select a broker or real estate agent? Can we just pick somebody, or would you have to put that out to, for request for proposal?
With it being owned by the C.I.C., we wouldn't be required to go through
Okay.
a RFP process, is my understanding.
Well, if it comes in at 1.2 million, I'd certainly be interested in that.
And
Yeah.
once again, depending on the offers that we do get, post April 30th, it would be a board decision as whether we wanted to go back out and list it with somebody to see what kind of further interest we might get
I would like to do that.
on a broader net.
But then, of course, we would lose control over the ultimate end usage of that building.
I would think that they would bring a contract to us and we could accept or deny.
Yeah, well, I don't know with it being listed. I mean, the only way we would owe a realtor commission if somebody came with the list price and it was cash. So you can always deny, I'm talking about ever paying the realtor.
future
If they-
use.
Yeah. But we could still do future use if it is listed with a broker.
Control that?
Yeah, is what I think Matt's asking.
We'd probably want to confirm that with our law director.
Yes, law director.
So as a refresher, how is that zoned?
That is zone B1.
So would that allow, which of those uses would be allowed?
Oh,
Well, I think we could, what I've been telling people is that we would want to work with them on any zone changes they would need. And I would think construction companies would be okay, and machine shops would be fine.
In the restaurant, or the restaurant entertainment venue?
That restaurant, I don't see it being as feasible because of the the number of people that would be on site that would be having to use a septic system, and
Right.
you know, you could redesign something like that, certainly at a cost.
Do you know how many gallons that septic system is?
No, I do not know.
Okay, because we have to look on Hammond County and see what.
Okay.
But I think the rezoning part, I think, is not as big of a challenge if we find the right use. I think we could work with somebody on that.
All right, any other comments, questions, concerns? There is no action from us at this time unless someone has a motion for action, because this is actually open till April 30th, right?
That is correct.
All right, going on to old business, and I assume that you have something for us there on Sears Utilities?
So we had discussed a number of things related to the utilities at Sears at our last meeting. And so with the change in weather, we opted to turn off the heat and keep the air handlers blowing to circulate air. And so that has, I think, it's going to contribute, we haven't seen utility bills since then, contribute to savings in the operations there. Most of the lighting has been turned out as well. There are a few safety lights that are still on just for first responders if they needed to be in there. Interesting enough that we have been able to use the site over the last month or so for our fire and police for doing some specialized training. So that's been helpful. We did have one incident where there was some training going on there, and we had a small flood. I'm not sure exactly what caused it, but the toilets upstairs just decided they just all started overflowing. And so we were able to connect with the mall property manager, maintenance manager, and also our fire, and we were able to shut off the fresh water on that. So we got that stopped and then cleaned up. And we opted to keep that fresh water supply off so that something like this did not happen again. And it's no different than what's in your own basement where you turn the water supply off to your house. The water supply to the fire suppression is still on. So that's the only thing that we have turned off relative to utilities at this point. And so I've had a discussion with the mall manager as well about the lighting in the parking lot. That was a question that was raised last meeting. We have 4 lights in the parking lot that we control, and those are on right now. And so that's not a problem. They are continuing to provide the maintenance and repairs to the other lights in the lot for the entire mall site. And they are reaching out to their legal counsel on what they believe our role might be and the other property managers' role and opinions relative to utility disconnect if we opted for that in the future. I did explain that at this point it appears that we are satisfied with not needing to do a full disconnect. There is an item that's going to be before the Board of Trustees at the Township meeting later today relative to a contract with Kleininger to do a survey of all the utilities and to get a full assessment of the mall site and what that would look like when if we were to move forward with the demolition of the building and that utility shut off or disconnect. So that was posed to the mall management as well as the demolition. So what their opinion might be relative to us demoing our building. The mall manager did not think that they had a veto over what we would do on our property, but he was pursuing that, so haven't heard back.
And you gave us in front of here with turning off the utilities, we do not assume any additional liabilities from our insurance companies. Okay.
So there was another question that had been asked about any change in insurance coverage or premiums or costs if we were to shut off our utilities. And this was particularly tied to total shut off of fire suppression as well, specifically. And since we're under the ports policy, their insurance company with Oswald Companies specifically said it would not increase the insurance for the general liability, but they are satisfied with the coverage that they're providing for us, and we are with what they're providing.
So the water leak was cleaned up to some extent. If that would have been more catastrophic, and I realize you might not know the answer, but one of the things I think about is, would that have been covered if it would have went into the mall and caused the floor tiles to buckle and they needed, $40,000 worth of floor tile work?
I would envision this insurance covering that.
Okay. And so the intent right now is leave the fire suppression active, keep the air blowing through the facility, and minimum security lighting.
That is correct.
Okay. I know that was a big discussion. If anybody else had any comments about that?
There was another question that Mr. Wallard asked last time relative to what other communities are doing about malls in their community. I was able to discuss with Springdale their approach to Tri-County. It is different insofar as Tri-County has no parcels at all that are owned or controlled by Springdale. And so their interest is from a distance where they are trying to be a part of the redevelopment of the mall. And that's, to the extent that they are participating at that level. So they have only had one incident of vandalism. Kids apparently broke in, drove the golf cart around the mall a while, and then crashed it. So that's been the only thing. They did discuss doing a complete mothballing of their mall, and of course, in conjunction with the current owners, and they were advised against that, and so they felt like they were okay with what they're doing now. One of the reasons is because they still have one tenant in the mall that does not have outward access, and that's Mi Cozumel. So there's a restaurant that's still left. Everybody else is just outlots, as Northgate has as well. So.
All right, thank you. Any other comments about utilities? And I see that there's really no action for us to take
Correct.
with regard to that.
I did have a question that came up from our last conversation about vandalism, and have the police stopped over regularly? Are they seeing any additional activity in the back at all, or?
I know there is regular traffic at the mall, particularly around Sears. I know I'll go over there on a periodic basis. The port's going over there on a regular basis. It's helped, I think, to have a lot of cops and fire.
Just saw one
here
pulling out there about,
lately.
12
But
o'clock today.
We've had no more incidents other than, we don't know whether it was actually a break-in or a door was left unlocked where the kids got in and had a fire extinguisher.
That was longer ago.
That's been, months ago.
Yeah.
So, but there's been nothing since then that we're aware of.
The walk-in entrance from the mall where you would walk into Sears, there's a lot of plastic on the floor. There is some wooden containers. There's some plaster hanging down from the ceiling. I wonder if it's getting close to the time we should go ahead and have the firewall constructed there to separate the mall off from the rest of it, or can we get that mess cleaned up, or what can we do?
I think it might be more financially prudent just to clean that up, move it away from the mall.
Okay.
We did get one bid on building that wall, and it was, I believe it was $8,400 or $8,700. So it seemed like it was a cost that we probably didn't want to commit to right in the immediate.
Sure.
Because April 1st is when the deadline is for the Ohio Department of Development bids. And sometime in April, we would hope to hear from them about our application. And so I think at that time, it would be best to come back and answer that question as to when we might want to build that wall. Because if we built it now, a 1-hour fire-rated drywall, we would just end up having to do that all over again if we tear down Sears and have to
Oh,
build a
sure.
new facade. So that's kind of where we're at on that decision.
Mr. Unger, is that on the mall side or the Sears side of the?
If you're in the mall looking into Sears, there's, in that maybe 15-foot long where it narrows down and you go into Sears, where Sears is in the tile of the floor, the drywall above that is water damaged from the water that was up on the second floor. And then when you look through the plastic roller door that pulls down, there's a lot of floor tile and stuff that came down from the ceiling. It kind of looks like it needs to be cleaned up.
And then could we then put like a canvas on the Sears side of the?
Yeah, conceivably, right now, it's a chain link door.
Right.
About 2-inch wide gaps, and then
Plastic slats in
in
it.
between that, they have plastic slats. So we could block vision into there. I think what's still left there was just our fire department were the ones that kind of came to the rescue on the
Sure.
flood.
Oh, then that happens. I just want to,
And
It's
we-
just unsightly at this point.
It is,
The
yeah.
people that are in the mall, that's
Right.
all that you're mentioning, right?
walkers,
Yeah.
yeah. It's the mall walkers, the only ones that see it, I guess, and then the neighbor next door.
sure, and the karate studio also. There's a lot, that karate studio actually stays pretty busy, the times I've been
Okay,
in there.
It's out in the mall on the right there. And
Right.
Yeah.
Anyway,
yeah,
I'd encourage you
we
to just
will.
take a walk up there. And I drove through there Sunday, and there are the yellow fire hydrants are the public ones, and there's one out on Springdale Road near the entrance to the property by the concrete garage. And then there's 3 red ones, which are privately owned fire hydrants. And I noticed the 4-inch screw cap was off of one of them out in the parking lot by the entrance to Sears garage. And that's just something for Captain Walsh to look at, or I should probably mention that to Alan, that somebody should go put that cap back on
Yeah,
there.
it was,
know if
it
they
was
drained 'em or-
leaking. It had a really small leak for a
Right.
little while.
So you
and
took
then
the cap off so it wouldn't freeze
I'm
and
not
crack?
sure why they took that off, but I'd noticed that it was off just the other day.
It was leaking and that hydrant's out of service. It's out of service, it needs to be replaced. And that cost was rather expensive.
Should it have a tag on it that says out of service, or when hydrants are out of service, you put a black bag over them, or how would somebody know that?
It's noted in our CAD system, active 911.
Okay,
But we'll get the other cleaned up and.
okay, great. And there was a
discuss.
couple shopping carts up there also. I don't know where they come from, the things of magnet.
Sears cards?
I don't think they're from Sears. I think they're from across the street. Somehow they get up and walk over there all by themselves, so.
All right, any other comments, questions, concerns for the greater cause? We do also have on the agenda, public comment, if time allows. We do have 4 minutes, but we don't have any public to comment.
Did you want to say something, sir? Saw you jump up.
All right, so on that note, are there any motions?
I motion that we adjourn the C.I.C. meeting at 5:54 PM.
I can second that.
Okay.
All right, any discussion? All right, we'll move to a vote on adjournment at 5:54 PM.
Ms. Orch?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes?
Mr. Waller?
Yes?
Mr. McElravy? Yes. Mr. Miller?
Yes.
Mr. Morvick?
Yes.
And yes.
All right, we are adjourned, 5:54 PM. Thank you.
It's officially 6:01 Verizon time. I guess we should start the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees for March 26, 2024. And we could have a roll call
Ms. Orch?
here.
Mr. Unger?
Here?
Mr. Waller?
Board, I would recommend a motion to go into executive session in accordance with Ohio Revised Code, Section 121.22G1, to discuss dismissal of employees, in accordance with G4, to discuss collective bargaining sessions, in accordance with G3, to discuss pending or imminent litigation, and in accordance with G8, to discuss confidential information related to specific business strategy and discuss negotiations with other political subdivisions respecting requests for economic development assistance.
I motion we would go into executive sessions for the reasons detailed by Administrator Weckbach.
And I'll second that.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Okay, it is 7:02 Verizon time. Time to start the regular meeting of the Board of Trustees for March 26, 2024. Can we have a roll call
Ms. Orich?
here?
Mr. Unger?
Here.
Mr. Waller?
Here.
And is there anything to report from executive session?
Nothing to report.
Okay, can we all stand to say the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And for a moment of meditation, another tragedy today, the bridge collapsing in Baltimore. Let's pray for those victims and families of those victims. And also, I wish from the township, everybody has a happy and safe Easter. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Baker, we have some approval of minutes.
Thank you, Board. I would ask for approval of the minutes of the Board of Trustees meeting held on February 13th, 2024.
I motion that we approve the minutes of the February 13th, 2024 meeting.
I'll second.
Any,
No discussion from me.
None from me.
none from me?
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Board. The first item tonight is a swearing in by Chief Walls of a new employee in the fire department.
Welcome, Chief.
Good evening to the board, all of you in attendance, and those of you watching virtually. Tonight I'm here to introduce and swear in our newly promoted career firefighter, Cody Wright. Cody attended Bay High School in Cleveland. He had attended the University of Cincinnati, where he walked on and played middle linebacker for 2 years. He lifeguarded while in high school and college, and during that, met some firefighters that piqued his interest in the fire service. Following college, he worked a few blue-collar jobs and then found our recruit class here at Colerain Township. He's worked part-time at Colerain and Sycamore Township, and tonight he's going to be pinned by his girlfriend, Hillary Habermel. And I'll let Cody introduce her real quick. He didn't know he was going to publicly speak tonight.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me, please. I state your name.
I, Cody Wright,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will uphold the Constitution
that I will uphold the Constitution
of the United States of America
of the United States of America
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio.
and the Constitution of the State of Ohio.
I will abide by the Colerain Fighting Events,
I will abide by the Colerain Fire Command,
mission statement,
mission statement,
values,
values,
code of ethics,
code of ethics,
standard operating guidelines,
standard operating guidelines,
and the township's policies and procedures.
and the township's policies and procedures.
I'll faithfully discharge the duties of firefighter, paramedic,
Faithfully discharge the duties of firefighter, paramedic,
and for Colerain Township,
and in for Colerain Township,
Hamilton County,
Hamilton County,
State of Ohio,
State of Ohio,
to the best of my ability,
to the best of my ability.
so help me God.
Thanks for joining the team.
Congrats and welcome aboard.
All right, thank you, Board. I'm currently getting the projector up and running, but the first full presentation that we have tonight is an update on the speed study conducted in the Sovereign neighborhood. So let me get this started here, and Chief Cordy is going to be helping me with this. But basically, we've got some key information here to sort of set the stage for this, because we knew with the pending opening of Noel Drive and the extension through Sovereign all the way to Pippin Road, which I will remind was something that, as part of the county subdivision guidelines, is not something that's within our purview or control. We had a suspicion that this was going to create an increased volume of traffic, and so to be proactive, we did establish 2 speed signs. Those are marked with a black star on the map there, starting in December. And this was really to start collecting data before the roadway was opened. You can kind of see where the homes are based off those little blocks that are on Sovereign and the side streets. And around 1/8, the road did open, creating that full connection all the way through to Pippin Road. And so after we started to collect that data, we really looked at 3 points in time: the month of December when the road wasn't fully open, month of January when it was, and then the month of February where it was open as well. So looking at violators per day, number of vehicles, maximum speed, average speed, really not a ton of changes except for the number of vehicles. Certainly we saw a large increase in the number of vehicles that's going through that neighborhood, likely because they're using it for cut-through traffic to divert off of Colerain Avenue and onto Pippin, or vice versa. And so the top of the 2 here is looking specifically at the westbound traffic, and the bottom is looking at the eastbound traffic. Certainly there's a much higher volume of cars that are going through the neighborhood on the eastbound side than there are on the westbound side. So that would indicate more cars going from Colerain to Pippin, not the other way around. So our policy that you all adopted several years ago lists 5 things that we have to look at when we're having one of these studies. These 5 things are listed here. So is it a township maintained street, which this is? Does it have a posted speed of 25 or less, which this does? Is the average daily traffic between 500 and 2,500? And it is. Is the vertical grade profile less than 10%, which this is, and that 85% of the traffic is in violation, which it is not? To just bounce back real quick, I think the percentage of violators was closer to 10% along the way. So a violator, just for extra perspective here, is anyone that's traveling 10 miles per hour over the speed limit that's posted in that area. So going 35 plus in that neighborhood. So we wanted to provide you all with a number of options, and they're in order of costs. So do nothing, and we'll go through all of these in depth to the extent that we can, but do nothing would not cost you anything. To continue to petition the Hamilton County Board of Commissioners also does not cost you anything. However, you'd be asking them to change their subdivision regulations, which there are certain items in the subdivision regulations that I know township staff has been asking the county to change for years, and they seem very reluctant to do so. Unfortunately, this is one of those things that, being a township and not our own separate city, we are required to follow what the county sets for subdivision guidelines. For example, one of the areas that I would like to see a little stronger would be the requirements for the composite that's used in new roads as they're being constructed, or other items that we've talked about with the county that we'd like to see changes, or how quickly we have to accept streets and things like that. But that's worth another full-on presentation at a later date. So the other items I'll go through in depth here. So this map just shows where we could install additional stop signs if we wanted to do that. This would require us to install about 10 new stop signs. It's a very, very low cost. But none of these intersections are per the Uniform Traffic Control Device Manual, which is a federal regulation that we follow for all of our streets. None of these would follow that. We could allow parking on both sides. We would have to look for areas where we were not within 100 feet of a fire hydrant. There's literally only one stretch there, and you can see where that is on the map just before Majestic. So that does not seem like a very feasible option. You could look at installing permanent speed signs. So we have seen when we've used speed signs in different neighborhoods in the past that there is an effect on travelers. So if they see that sign flashing, usually most people want to obey the speed limit. They just might not realize that they're going over, and so when they first see that, they'll slow down a little bit because they just may not be aware of how fast they are going. Lane markings in this graph here is a little hard to read, but basically there's studies out there that show that the width of a roadway directly impacts the average speed. because the more wide a road is, wider the road is, the more likely you are as an individual to drive faster because you feel like you've got more wiggle room if your car is more toward the left, right. If the lane is narrower, it makes it more difficult for you to be able to drive at a higher speed and not go over whatever those lane markings are. And so one option to consider would be to physically mark the roadway. Currently, the road is about 25 feet across. You could break this up in a way that would create 8-foot wide drive lanes. But again, that is just one of the options that we're presenting tonight. You look at speed cushions, and so speed cushions, we need about 40 feet between the edge of one driveway apron to another in order to make sure that we can install these in a way that does not require someone to back out onto one of the speed cushions in order to leave their driveway. The 2 spots marked in black are spots that make perfect sense to put these in. The 3 spots marked in red are not ideal because there's not enough width there, but they also could be viable spots if we wanted to. The issues with all 3 of them really come down to how close they would be to an intersection more so than driveway issues, but there would be a little bit of that as well. One of the recommendations that we've had in the past, anytime that we do look at installing speed cushions, is that we actually look at installing them about 500 feet apart. So naturally, you'd be able to get 3 of those that would fit within that mantra, but the 4th one, if you wanted to go that route and do 4, would not fit. So if we did want to move with this, I would recommend that the township look at installing 3, and that the board provide some direction on which of those 2 middle ones would make the most sense, the one that is west of the road there or east of the road. Another option, and now we start to get into the more expensive considerations, is to look at installing a mini roundabout. This is actually an image taken from Fairfield. This would require a little bit of right-of-way acquisition. Doesn't necessarily slow the road to like a super low degree, but it does require the driver to navigate around an obstacle, and that does then, in theory, reduce the speed overall. And then a final option that we looked at was raised sidewalks. So these would be more like a speed bump, but they'd be at all the intersections and crossings throughout the neighborhood because there are a number of side streets that intersect with Sovereign. This would probably be the most expensive of the options because right now our existing sidewalks do not meet what would be the current ADA standard. And so if we were to improve them, we would need to get them up to the current ADA standard. And basically what that means is that if you're in a wheelchair, for example, and you're going, let's say, westbound on Sovereign, the intersection does not cross exactly parallel to the other side of the street, so you would kind of dump out a little bit into the road and then go back up to the other sidewalk. So we'd have to fix all of that with that as well. So wanted to provide those options and considerations and then turn this over to you all for additional conversation and next steps on where we should go from there. Ed's here to answer any of the specifics around the speed tables, or not speed tables, but the speed study and the information we received.
Sure. Just yesterday, I was coming up Colerain Avenue in the city of Cincinnati, coming up from Mount Airy Forest. As you approach the intersection of North Bend Road, the city has put 4 concrete permanent in the pavement concrete speed cushions there, and it really does slow people down. It's right across from the water tower, and they do work and they do slow people down. I was over in Westwood Friday, and there are more conventional asphalt speed cushions on Wardall Avenue, and those slow you down quite a bit also. And I'm sure anybody that gets around town, they're over by, the city has them in a number of places.
Yeah, and so we did, in anticipation of that, speak to the city of Cincinnati to get some feedback from their engineers about the concrete versus asphalt. They have some concerns with the long-term holdup of the concrete ones. Certainly, those
Crack
are
and break and chunks will come
far
up.
more flush. They look a lot better. Their folks were telling us that their preference is probably more the asphalt, or like the ones that we did as on Niagara and what have you. So that was at least the feedback we got from our conversations with them.
I've been over on Sovereign numerous times, and it has changed the dynamic over there. At the same time, a lot of those folks that are speeding, some of them are cut throughs, some of them live back there. So that's my observation.
I know the averages are still contained, but when you see 70 miles an hour going through a 25, I mean, there are definitely violators where I feel bad for what the people are saying, how fast they are coming through. That's a lot of speed in that type of neighborhood. I know there has to be something that should be done.
Yeah, and I spoke to the city of Cincinnati engineer about this a couple weeks ago. The concrete ones that they use are about 20 grand a piece, all in. I was under the impression that you got a different kind of feedback than I got, that they liked the fact that they weren't drilling down into the street itself and ruining the integrity of the street, which would lead to more potholes or something like that.
Yeah, so that is one piece of this, right? So if you install the other types, you're more likely to do damage to the underlying roadway versus the speed bump or cushion itself holding up. And so that's kind of the catch-22 on preferred approach, is one's probably going to last longer as an actual traffic calming device. The other is going to not last as long, but hold up the roadway better.
And the other thing I've noticed, because my route to work, they're up and down Glenway, they're up and down Queen City, they're on Harrison, they've put all kinds in that area, there is a tendency on the other ones for people to try to navigate right through the middle, which I think probably makes it just as dangerous, if not more. So I don't know. There are obviously different advantages to each. For me, I think that the speed study shows the speeds, but we don't get an idea of the end number, how many actual cars are going to be going through there, and I think that we're going to see those increase over time, more and more and more. And part of the and I remember when we had the negotiations for the subdivision back there, the one thing we didn't want was apartments, and we went to a great deal of expense to make sure that it wasn't apartments, because in that area that would just overwhelm things. But the other thing is that when I talked to the people at Sovereign, we wanted to make sure that it didn't have an impact on their quality of life. And I think that going from Pippin, it's less of an issue because of the way it's knuckled out there. But I think that part of the maybe unanticipated consequence of this is coming the other way, which concerns me quite a bit. And I do think something needs to be done with it. So.
And if I can speculate a little bit too on the high-end speeders, I don't know that this is fact, but I mean, I've heard that with the auto dealerships all being located in that area, that you often see test drives going down Sovereign and Regal and some of the other streets in that neighborhood. And so I wouldn't be surprised if that's part of the data that's going on, as folks are testing out a new car and they want to see how fast they can get it. And so they
take it to Ronald Reagan. I mean,
Yeah, it's right there too.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's frustrating to me.
Whether or not you're allowed to take that on the highway or not as part of your test drive is part of the question, right?
I know when I bought my first car at Bennett Ford, I test drove it on Cross County because I did want to run it at a higher speed, well below the speed limit for all the police officers in the crowd. But I did, that's naturally what you want to do. You want to test that, but we don't need to be testing it back there. So maybe in addition, we need to speak to some of the dealerships and.
We can have that conversation. I mean, whether or not that results in change, that's up to the dealership, right? Because it is a public roadway, and we can't bar them from using the roadway. But
Absolutely.
I don't know. Looking at the data from the speed table and everything that's here, it is interesting to know that the slowest times of the day that vehicles are actually traveling through here are 10 to 5 p.m. That makes no sense. So the busiest time of the day that you're expecting vehicular traffic to be coming off Colerain or off Pippin to use this as a cut through is the slowest time according to our data.
You wouldn't expect it coming
You would expect that to be the busiest time.
Yeah.
to and from work. It's like 8 a.m. and 5 or 6 p.m.
You were looking for some specific direction on the screen. You showed a couple locations for speed tables.
Yep.
I think they were the ones that were in the
Red and black.
highlighted. What's the difference between the black and the red ones? The black was recommended.
black makes perfect sense, giving the distance between driveway aprons, that you should be able to install those without creating an issue for people backing out of their driveways. red are either gonna create issues because they're too close to an intersection, or they are not gonna be able to put in where somebody's gonna potentially have to back out onto the speed cushion in order to get out of their driveway.
Later in the agenda this evening, we're going to vote on awarding a contract for the 2024 road program, and earlier this past week, we talked about that was slightly under budget. I would like you, just speaking as one of us, I would like you to talk to that contractor if we do go ahead and award this, and see if they could give us a price on putting in the two ones that you have in black, just to see how that works out.
We could bring that back then as a change order potentially at a future board meeting. If it's under $50,000, I believe we'll still have to get 2 additional quotes just to meet
Right.
competitive bidding thresholds, but
But ultimately, those speed bumps for those two areas would be about $40,000.
if it's.
I've had those
3,
installed before, and that's a very high number. I think it's a lot less.
20,000 apiece,
I
so.
think it's a lot less than.
No, those are the concrete ones in the
Concrete
city.
ones, oh, you want the rubber ones, okay.
I think you could do 3, maybe 4 for 30,000, just depending on the contractor and how apt they are to
Right.
that, so.
I
So
think
that's-
Mr. Unger has a fantastic idea with putting that as a change order, although I'd be more apt, instead of 2, I think it would be more effective to either have 3 or 4.
Yeah, and so that's where, it sounds like there's some direction from the board to seek a couple of bids to see about whether it's a change order or outside bid to put in speed cushions on Sovereign. Really where I would want direction so I could give the best perspective to staff is the before or after that intersection if you're heading, say, eastbound.
What is the unmarked road there? Right after,
Is that Sarah's Bend?
Is that Wexler?
Or is that Wexler?
I think that's Wexler, isn't it? I mean, I think it makes sense to put it on the Pippin side of Wexler.
This one right here.
Yes. Oh, that's Sarah's Bend, okay.
The name to the left is Wexler, by the 2 red is Sarah's Bend.
Okay, Sarah's Bend. To the
they
Pippin side of Sarah's Bend.
Are they speeding coming up the hill more on, to that study? I mean, it seems like,
So the low numbers from the study were coming up the hill by Noel through where the new construction is, so that would have been up an incline. So this average speeds were between 38 and 40.
yeah, because I mean, you're going
This-
downhill there, you're coming uphill.
This
from-
stretch here is probably still going to be problematic. You may see what we call retaliatory speeding through this area, which is why I would think that there would even be benefit to consider having this one as well. Sometimes what happens is folks, when they hit 3 of these in a row, they get a little mad, and so they gun it to try to make up whatever time they had to use to slow down, especially if they're just cutting through. But if they know that there's another one coming, that might be enough to keep them slow, because this is a long stretch, but this stretch is very, very tight when it comes to where all these driveways are located along the way. And so
So you're talking about the other one to the Pippin side of Majestic.
I would personally think that you may want to consider 4 in total. One of these 2 here, these 2, and then this one. And certainly we can get quotes that look at either 3 in total or 4 in total to consider. We don't have
And
to
I
do
would
all
like to
them,
keep
so-
it within the budget item that we had for the road program this year,
and
so we
that-
didn't
and
go
that's fine.
beyond that budget.
that, so-
So whatever fits in there.
And I guess if there is a preference or this is something that we can maybe just get the quotes for without knowing the exact location between these 2 and revisit those 2 later, that's another option.
I don't have any other comments.
So yes, I think the guidance that you're getting from all 3 of us here unanimously is that,
Get quotes.
yeah, we want to do something to calm the speed.
Up to 4, and we'll decide on these 2 maybe later. And that would provide you all with time over the next few weeks between trustee meetings to maybe get out and look at these intersections and get a better feel for where these could or couldn't make sense.
And honestly, speak to some of the neighbors. I mean, they know more about it than.
And they may provide perspective tonight
There
on
you
where
go.
they think could make sense.
Did any of them come here?
Yeah, we got,
I'm just kidding. So,
I'll let them speak first.
see some familiar faces out there. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right, so that gives me direction. Sorry, just writing down my notes. All right, so the next agenda item is not a formal presentation, but is to provide an update on basically the results of the levy that happened last week for the police department, which was a no vote by the community. And so we've spent a decent amount of time internally looking at options and alternatives that can help us to bridge the gap in the short term meaning next 1 to 3 years, And really there are 3 buckets that you can look at this from. So one approach that you could take is to try to balance the budget entirely on the backs of the police department, which would mean some very significant and drastic cuts to how we operate, because we don't create widgets, we have people in police. That's what we do. Another bucket would be to look at balancing this on the backs of the general fund. And so when we talk about the general fund, we're looking at any of those operations that are subsidized. And I say that because right now our general fund is projected to maintain flat over the next 5-year period, which means that we're not necessarily adding dollars to our general fund. What we are doing is keeping things status quo. So if we have to supplant something that we're doing in the general fund in order to offset cost in police, that means we would have to look at programmatic cuts in police. And then naturally, the third option here would be to look at some sort of blended rate between the 3 of them. We've certainly spent a lot of time in-house looking at where those cuts can come from in all 3 sources, and would just open that up to additional conversation and perspective from the board. To tee this up, when you look at programmatic areas in the general fund, for example, you've got things like our road budget and the amount of funding that we put toward our annual road program. You've got items like our zoning fees and what we charge for zoning permits. That's a lever that you can pull because we do subsidize the zoning and permitting function of our organization. You can look at items like summer camp and things like that as well that aren't necessarily core to government operations. And so with that, I will tee that up for additional conversation from the board. Really, there's not any action items that would need to be taken tonight, but any feedback that you all provide gives us direction internally for future conversations with our organization. I know we've got a great deal of police officers in the public that are here to get whatever feedback they can from you all. So I'll leave it with that. So
Well, I'll start. I look around, I see a lot of faces, and I will do anything I can to keep as many of you. I am not interested in having you fund it yourselves. I am totally for a blended policy. I guess the right verbiage is to steal from Peter to pay Paul. And I would like to keep each and every one of you, and I would work very hard to try to do that. And I'm sorry that the levy didn't pass. It's not how a lot of people feel, that you are desired, you are wanted, and my heart hurts for you guys.
We are a police, fire, and roads organization, and it's always been my commitment to maintain our basic services, and some of the other things that go beyond that, we've talked about over the last few years, and I think the pathway to keeping those 3 core functions funded is to make sure that we stay focused on just those 3.
So I also prefer a blended model. Was it just last week? Was the election a week ago? It seems like it's been months. I'm so sorry. It was just a dagger to see and actually I kept hitting refresh, and Colerain always takes a long time, and I talked to Chief, and I guess you guys were going around to the doors and getting the numbers, and I'm embarrassed. It's easy to take this as a reflection on the police department, but I have never been around a more quality group of men and women than we have at Colerain is our first responders, fire, EMS, and police. And I know that we did a lot to try to get this thing passed, and it just didn't happen, and I don't know what to say.
So a few recommendations that I have that I would sincerely appreciate direction and support from the board on are to make a commitment to not having any layoffs in any of our departments over the course of 2024, to look at holding any vacancies that do occur in the police department open for the time being as we continue to explore this, that we continue to fund the road program for 2024 in full, that we continue to fund summer camp for 2024, that we then look to oscillate the amount that we're able to contribute from general fund reserve and the road program to offset the long-term costs in the police department, and that we backfill any of those offsets with what could have been contributed to capital reserves in the future. And I think I had one more thing here, and that we as staff come back with a look at some increases to our zoning permit fees at a future meeting. So that would be some of my recommendations, and that would provide me with some of the direction to continue to have conversations internally with staff as well as externally.
Let's take the most significant one first, most important one. And, we anticipated this after the first loss, and for this year, we've got it funded. I don't want a single layoff at all. In the meantime, that buys us some time, and for staff, all three of us, Mr. Baker, whomever, to start looking under couch cushions for anything we can to make sure that we keep the force as intact as we can. It's been remarkable over the last 2 years, I guess, two years. I guess the increase in what we've seen from police officers, and just the morale has been better. And I heard, is this right? We hit 500 speed citations last month.
Traffic stops, 560.
Traffic stops, yeah. Which is, I think that the longer we go on, I think that the township will figure it out and realize that this is the core of keeping people safe, our first responders, and they'll realize that it's something that we need to really prioritize. But until then, I don't want any layoffs. All the other things you listed, I'm fine with, but I just want to emphasize no layoffs this year. And we will start looking. There's a couple things you mentioned that are already in motion that I honestly called you up and said, let's cut it now. But it creates some. These are items out of the general fund, but it would create probably more cost to cut it now than it would to go through. But I think that we need to look at every single program for that. And that's what the voters have asked us to do. And we're going to do whatever we can to keep things going with it.
And I did neglect to mention that Ed and I did spend a tremendous amount of time looking at different contracts and equipment and services and things like that. And so we do have a number of budgetary changes that we're going to be making in-house to try to help plug the hole as much as we can. But that only gets us so far, and isn't a extreme long-term sustainable option. So.
And I think what you guys did with the cost comparison of what a cruiser costs today versus the last time the levy passed. So one of the other government classes at Elder actually talked about the levy, because a couple of the students came up to me and said, oh my gosh, how did that not pass? Look at the cost. So they did cost comparisons, and they were just kind of shocked at A, what things cost now, and B, how difficult it's been for us to get it through. But, I don't give up, and neither do you. And we're going to keep chugging ahead to see what we can do to keep this intact and make sure that we provide quality service to Colerain Township residents.
And things have gotten very expensive in the last 3 to 5 years. I've never considered this to be a fat organization. I've always thought we ran lean here. We are funded throughout '24, and as I've told you for months, we're going to get this figured out, Chief, and we just will. As Jeff mentioned, there are other funds, our capital reserve fund and other funds, and we're just going to have to see how things develop in the next few months to move things around. As I've told you, we would have absolute chaos in society if it wasn't for police. And I just look at some neighboring communities and the chaos that goes on in them, particularly in the one just south of us. I don't want that coming here, and I'm committed to making all this work one way or another. I don't mean to keep taking shots at Cincinnati, but if you just look right down there, we have a much better place to live here.
There are a lot of communities south of us, but yes, that is one.
Well, there's northern Kentucky.
I appreciate everything I'm hearing, and thank you for that. And I have already just said this to you just recently, and I'm going to say it again because I think it's important for my people to hear this. We have a fantastic police department. We have grown tremendous steps in the last year and a half, 2.5 years. Behind me, I have a group of people that have bled, have sweat, have cried, have ruined their bodies for this community. All we want is support. That's it. There's very little that we can reach to the community and say, we need your support on, and funding is it. That is absolutely it. So thank you for trying to help me keep my team together.
And for those out there that are in uniform or not in uniform, part of the police force, I'm going to embarrass the chief here, but there's been no bigger advocate, no harder fighter. I mean, he would talk to a group of 2 people to get this levy passed. I mean, he was everywhere, working his butt off, and still, you've got a leader here that's, quite frankly, a bulldog. He's not gonna give up. He just doesn't let loose of it, and I'm glad, because I think he's right in this case.
And I worked at the polls with some people out there, and they are on their own personal time working for this, and a lot of hard work and effort went in to this campaign. And once again, like I said, it's almost embarrassing that we are a township of 60,000 residents, and we need a minimum of 90 cops, and we can't even get the minimum we need. Now we have to see what we can do to still keep the township safe with less money.
So on that note, I don't want to sugarcoat things. One of the items in the sort of discussion that we've had today does deal with, as vacancies occur and keeping those positions open, that does mean that we're going to have to look at changing how we operate as a department. And that means that there are going to be things that we currently do that over the coming months we're probably not going to be able to do. Now, all these men and women took an oath to best protect, serve the residents of Colerain, Hamilton County, state of Ohio, and the country, and they will. But there are going to be certain items like vacation checks, noise complaints, alarm drops, minor incidents that are nonviolent offenses that we may not be able to respond to and may require a resident to report differently to us. And that's going to be uncomfortable for everyone, but that's going to be because we have a duty to provide the best service we can, but also to be safe while we're doing it. And some of these items require multiple officers to respond to. And if we've got to have multiple officers available in order to respond to, a domestic violence incident or something to that effect, that's going to limit our ability to respond to certain other incidents and requests that we have.
And I think that's paramount. The most important thing is keeping those folks out on the road safe. Mm-hmm. And that's so it might go to a model where it's a nonviolent crime, you calling it, or we do some type of other. We've talked about different reporting mechanisms because I don't want, just one officer. Well, it's a state law responding to a domestic, but I want overwhelming.
10 years ago, we had 4 patrol officers on the street. I was working as a sergeant covering our 2 beat, our western beat. It was incredibly dangerous, and we're lucky we all made it home.
Is there any other thoughts or feedback from the board at this time?
I'm good.
For everyone who's come out to hear this, and thank you for all the work you've done on this, Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, so that. The next item on the agenda is a public hearing for our Community Development Block Grant Program. This is a requirement under state and federal law. We traditionally get somewhere in the neighborhood of $100,000 per year. Yep, that's fine. So we traditionally get somewhere in the neighborhood of about $100,000 per year. This is the 3-year cycle that's opening back up, so we are set to apply. In prior years, the county has not necessarily awarded all of their funding, so we thought it prudent to request more dollars than what we typically get in the off chance that we then are awarded additional dollars. And so this public hearing is really to discuss the initially proposed projects, several of which are already being funded through other sources, which would allow us to offset some costs to free up some additional dollars. Rather than going into the details of all those projects right now, I will request that the board have a motion to open the public hearing and we take testimony from the public.
I motion that we open the public hearing as described by Administrator Weckbach.
I'll second.
Ms. Orch?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
If you wish to testify at the Community Development Block Grant public hearing, please stand up, raise your right hand. Please state your name and address when you walk up here. You swear to tell the truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Okay, I don't know, Matt, I don't see you sign anything up, but Lori, you signed up? Okay, you want to come up?
Assuming that you all are here for the CDBG funding, right?
Yes.
Okay, yep.
Yeah.
Did you want to come up and testify?
So you had Laura, Lori, and Matt.
Yeah, I was going to say, I just have Lori, but I didn't know if she wanted to speak twice. Yeah, I'm speaking twice. Okay, so, just, that's what I wanted to double check in. Okay.
Hello, everybody.
Hi.
So Lori McMullen, 10057 Menominee Drive.
Laura Dakin, 10027 Pippin Road, Cincinnati, Ohio.
And we're just going based off of the slides that were in the agenda since we didn't show them. Number one, thank you for adding the Springdale sidewalks. I know it's a conversation that a Greater Northbrook has had with the administration for about 7 years. And we have our goat trails, and it's very near to the area that Drew Allen was hit by a car, and safety there is a big challenge, so thank you for including that. Number two, I know we are not residents of Groesbeck, but we love the idea of the Blanchetta basketball courts. That was a great addition, and we're kind of a little jealous, so we may be eyeballing some areas in Northbrook to try to get some of those areas with some hoops. Do you want to do that one?
Sure. If we could squeeze in possibly maybe some funding for a gazebo in the pollinator garden down on Amarillo Court, that would be super nice. Where the planters of our group are working on a circular sunflower, if you haven't seen any of the postings on Facebook, but it would be super nice to get some kind of little seating place inside the garden there too. So we were hoping that maybe that might be also added. And then lastly, in our strategic plan from Urban Fast Forward that was done years ago, we talked about making a pathway from the pollinator garden or whatever at that time we were going to make it up to Adams or Pippin Road. And since we've talked about so frequently in the township about making some form of connectivity, trails, etc., we thought maybe it might be to our advantage as we hope to redevelop that area more and more each year to make some kind of path or bike trail or something from the pollinator garden up to the sidewalks on either Pippin and or Adams. So we were hoping that maybe that might be considered in the CDBG funds as well.
That's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Matt?
Mr. T-Short, not long until opening day. I see your reveal
Reds.
There you
Right.
go.
Thursday.
Yep.
Big day. I didn't mean to do that.
You okay?
So I don't, Matt Teetsort, 8448 Linus Drive. I don't have anything new to propose or add to the suggestions for the CBDG grants. But I guess I'd like to kind of just prioritize what I saw in your suggestions in the agenda. And, of course, I saw Groesbeck Park, and I was like, oh, great. But as far as priorities, it's like, I think the sidewalks on Springdale are, very important and, much needed there. And I think the second, go along with what Groesbeck suggested. I really like the idea of the basketball courts on Blanchetta. And then third, the, improvements to Groesbeck Park. I think we're already moving in the right direction with the firehouse and, replacing the stuff that was there before. So that's just my 2 cents on prioritizing the needs of the suggestions, because it's 100,000, but you can put in for more. You might get it, but is it they approve the project or do they approve the amount?
So both. So the county would approve the project and the amount, and then after that, if we wanted to make changes, we'd have to go through a similar public hearing process.
Okay, so that's all I have for tonight. And I am signed in to be for citizens' reps. So
Okay.
should be a slip in there.
Thank you. Thank you. Oh, there you are. Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Is there anybody else that wants to speak?
Board, I would recommend closing the public hearing. We will have another public hearing on this item in April as well.
A motion to close the public hearing on the Community Development Block Grant Community Development Block Grant.
I will second Matt's motion.
Ms. Orge?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. The next item on the agenda is citizen address, and I will pull up our timer.
Okay, Matt, since you were up, Blast, come up first.
Matt Teetsort, 8448 Linus Drive. And so I was actually signed in. I was planning on speaking and just reiterating my email to all of you earlier in support of the speed cushions on Sovereign. And based on your discussions prior, I no longer need to do that. And my words are thank you, thank you, thank you for supporting Sovereign in their efforts to obtain speed cushions for traffic calming. Like I said in my email, I appreciate the four-way stop sign at Regal and the street trees. Both of those add to the street calming effect. And the 67, 69, and 70 mile per hour maximum speeds was just really telling to me that something drastic needed to be done. So I appreciate your efforts in that. And I think that's all I have. I guess I'll take one more since I'm up here. I'll take this moment. I know you've gotten a lot of flack from some people. I think I've spoken to you all individually about my thoughts on Sears, and I just wanted to publicly say that I support your efforts in improving Northgate Mall and trying to move that property into a positive direction. I think, I've given my feedback over the years through when you had the boards in the rotunda here 24 hours for a couple of weeks, a couple years back, and we could write our feedback on there. And that's the kind of things that we were writing on there is, do something with Northgate Mall. Imagine Colerain and that whole process that you solicited feedback and was able to drop on the map online our feedback. And, I've given my feedback through those ways as well. So I wanted to give you my support on the Sears purchase. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Lori, you want McMullen?
And Kathy, if I may, real quick, just to remind folks, since we've got newer people in the audience, how we typically handle citizen address, what the timer is, back and forth, all that fun stuff. So.
Okay, thank you. We have a 5-minute limit.
And just one other thing, just so folks know, we typically don't engage in back and forth questions and answers. We try to address those through administrative reports later in the evening.
Questions that are raised, we've come to a policy that we'd like to have our administrators come up and talk to it after they've researched what the question is, so we have the accurate information for you. Thank you.
Unfortunately, you didn't realize we're a duo.
Okay,
We're called
let me-
Gloria. Oh, Gloria.
You've changed sides, though, on
I
the
was gonna say,
on the
are you-
podium.
I'm always right.
Because you just didn't sign anything. I'm looking through.
So we wanted to share with you the Northbrook Resident Cleanup Day so that we could try to get us as much support for it from the administration, which I've already talked to Jeff about. and the trustees as well, if you get the opportunity to stop by for a little while, chip in, whatever. We'd like to see as much participation as possible. We do have some new rules this year for that day. No moving trucks, no contractors, no landlords, no junkers. And I'm basically saying this for the public who may watch this. It is for the Northbrook, greater Northbrook area, which is Compton to Pippin to Struble to Colerain, that square, but the tires are for anyone in the township, and it's up to 4 tires can be disposed of, car, SUV, pickup, and truck. And lastly, the rules. Proof of residency is required. 2 items of the household goods only. Upholstered furniture must be wrapped in plastic. High volume loads will be limited to 2 per household. And we cannot accept any yard waste, bulky materials such as drywall, concrete, bricks, dirt, rocks, liquid, combustible, or any hazardous materials. There will be no drop-offs after 3. So
And
it is
the
from
date?
9 until 3.
The date again?
May 4th, or I'm sorry,
May
May
4th.
4th. And it is a well-oiled machine when you guys do this.
Star Wars Day.
It's the 7th annual.
May the
cleanup
Northbrook be
day.
cleaner.
And it's been very successful, very, very.
Very good.
Okay. Thanks, Laura.
Mm-hmm. Y'all wanna stay?
Okay. Now it's just Lori, not Loria. I just want to go on record and say the Sovereign needs traffic calming, so thank you for checking into that and getting some bids. You know I'm going to say it. Don't forget last year you approved Menominee forced speed cushions. It's getting warmer, so that epoxy will stick to my new pavement. Pollinator garden. So the past couple weeks we started lot 5, so it's the 5th of 5 lots. There's going to be, as we mentioned before, the sunflower circle, adding a bunch of plants. We have 100 jugs of plants going. We've been mulching the heck out of the area. There's a lot of dumping that happens, so we're trying to address that for you guys as well. If you didn't go to Dravo Park this past weekend, then the Poly community put on one heck of a community event. Happy Holly to everyone. And then I need to get serious because as a Colerain Township resident, you can't say it, but I can say it. I'm pissed off. Oh my gosh. So a wise person told me recently, and I hope I don't cry because I'm that mad. A wise person recently told me that police services is a lot like an insurance policy. It's something that you have to pay for and hope you never need. In Colerain, at least 40,000 calls for our insurance policy were made last year. Unfortunately for Colerain, we now have a very high deductible. We have a very high deductible we have to pay, and it's just gone up, and it will likely result in some decline in services, as was already spoken about. I just want to go on record to say how truly sorry I am to the men and women who put their safekeeping into the hands of a community who have twice now let them down. We need to be putting their well-being before any politics or any discussions about some empty buildings at a mall. I just hope that the result, after the dust settles, isn't the cause of an injured officer. We've been through that as a community before, and I'm speechless when it comes to only 21% of our residents even showing up to cast a vote. So Colerain, we need to fix this and get back to having a safe and vibrant community. We have a top-rated, CALEA accredited police department that, again, we just let down. Thank you.
Lori, thank you. And thank you for all the help you did on the levy. I really do appreciate it. Okay, Jim Tenzing. Sure, if you want, yeah.
Good evening. Thanks for coming out.
Okay, so you were, so
Hello,
she's
Annette.
speaking on besides of you, right? Okay. Okay.
Hello.
Okay, you're gonna come up next. Okay, okay.
My name is Annette Tenzing, and I live at 10263 Hawkhurst Drive. I'm here to talk about what my husband, sorry, Jim and I, what our life has been like since the juvenile home opened up next door to us at 10269 Hawkhurst Drive in April 2023. Of course, the commotion started approximately a year prior to April 2023 when Legacy Residential Homes, started renovating the house. During renovation, parking was ridiculous. People, contractors coming and going, continuously blocking our driveway. They seemed to either be oblivious to their behavior or just not care. Then April 2023 was the opening of the group home. Not too long after it opened, we witnessed a resident, a boy, climbing out of the back window, running past our front yard window, stealing a package off the porch from a house 2 doors down, running back to the home, all caught on camera. Runaways are common. We've had our patio egged, fruit has been thrown on our patio, garbage from their cans ended up on our patio because they do not seem to know how to throw away their garbage and close the lids. If they miss the cans, the garbage just stays on the ground. I have pictures. Parking has been atrocious. There are people coming and going all times of the day and night. Cars constantly park over our driveway or block it entirely. They seem to have no self-awareness whatsoever. Even if there is room to park on the street in front of our house, they will squeeze in between the driveways or park in a way to be over our driveway. I've had to ask them to move their car up or back so we can have enough swing to get out. This has been going on ever since they've moved in. I was just able to address the parking mess with the manager of the house, who I had never met, so the parking has gotten better since the March 12th incident. I have 30 pictures of parking problems, which probably isn't all of them. Regarding March 12th, 2024, that was the day one of the residents decided to bash my car windshield 9 times with a heavy plastic mailbox he stole from Springdale Road. He was off on a walk that day alone. Going off alone happens frequently. Thankfully, we have a Ring camera that captured the entire event. One of the sad things is the adults of the home were all outside watching him bash the windshield of my car. They did not come over to stop him. When my husband came running out screaming, "What the heck are you doing?" the boy ran. My husband looked over at them and said, "Why didn't you stop him?" Their reply was astonishing. "We can't touch him." That was eye-opening. We had wondered about our peace and possibly our security learning about the home that was moving next door, but now it was confirmed. Our safety is definitely in question. No doubt about it. What will stop another resident from losing it on any given day? We don't know, but what we do know is the adults in the house can't stop them. They can't touch them by their own admission. We could be outside working or just enjoying our yard and be attacked. Our houses are only 19 feet apart, and I have flowers on the side yard right there, adjacent to their house, 19 feet away. Unbeknownst to me, they could walk up behind me and do whatever. Now my guard must be up all the time. I have no confidence to be out there anymore without worry or concern. We also have vegetable garden, flower gardens, we feed the birds. We thoroughly enjoy our backyard, watching the squirrels, butterflies, bees, relaxing on our patio. We've worked hard the last 42 years to be able to enjoy ourselves in our home and yard. Our sense of security is gone. Since April 2023, there have been 19 police reports that we know of. The smell of pot is ever prevalent and strong. Arguing between the boys and sometimes the house mentors has been witnessed, seen, and heard. Also, foul language, fights between the boys has spilled over into our yard. The boys are unsupervised. They go on unsupervised walks frequently. Their mission is a bunch of word salad nonsense that sounds great on paper. However, living next door to this, I haven't seen the fruits of their grand plan at all. LRH calls the residents youth, 12 to 21-year-olds. Well, 18, 19, 20, and 21-year-olds are not youth. They're young men. Frankly, housing 12 to 17-year-olds with these men is questionable at best.
A home like this does not belong in a residential area, ever. To never know who is residing in the home is not right. It's a revolving door with troubled boys / young men coming and going, and the adults change too. I just have a little more. LRH says it's a nonprofit. Seems more like a
Okay.
business.
I'm going to ask that we give for another minute.
I'm almost done. It really doesn't matter what they say on paper. The evidence says something else, and we homeowners are paying the price. Our safety and security matter. Please help us and others struggling with this same problem get these homes out of Colerain Township. Thank you.
Yes.
So Jim, do you want to come to, okay.
Right. Right. Thank you.
Thanks for sending us that video. That was very eye-opening.
Hello. I'm Jim Tenzing, also from 10263 Hawkhurst. Thank you for listening to me this evening. My wife and I may be the only ones speaking tonight about how a group home has disrupted a neighborhood, but the list of people who are curious about what the heck is going on, not just in our neighborhood, but from all around Colerain Township, grows every day. From the first day that the 12 to 21-year-olds moved in until March 12th, when a young man who up to that point was considered one of their promising rehabilitation projects, stole a mailbox from Springdale Road, walked up our street, and as the mentors watched, bashed our car windshield and hood 9 times with that same mailbox while they did nothing. Fortunately, I came out of the house screaming. It scared him enough to make him stop and drop the mailbox and escape down the street. Now I contemplate what might have happened if I wouldn't have scared him. What if he would have turned and came at me and my wife? We've lived on Hawkhurst Drive for 42 years, raised our kids, put an addition on our home, and recently renovated our first floor. We love our home and what we've turned it into. We plan to live here until our kids put us in a home, but those plans may have to change. I will now not let my wife work out in her flowers by herself. One flower bed is up near the front sidewalk, 15 feet from where our car's windshield was completely destroyed. My grandson, Jack, who is here tonight with us, was with us that morning. He seems to be okay, and we've talked to him about it a lot. Jack and my granddaughter, Layla, who's also here tonight, have always loved coming over to our home. Now I'm afraid when they come, they will always wonder if something like that could happen again, and it surely could. So now our world has been turned upside down, just like so many other residents in Colerain Township. In the past year, I've never smelled so much marijuana in my life. Our mailman told us they are constantly smoking pot up on Fulbourn Drive, which is just right around the corner. The 12 to 21-year-olds are free to go just about wherever they want outside, and they are completely unsupervised. We've been told the state of Ohio is responsible for allowing these homes in Colerain Township, and I appreciate that our voices are being heard by the trustees and the administrators. The state calls it a home. That is word salad by the state. Don't be fooled, this is a business in the middle of our neighborhoods. Our group home has at least 7, maybe 8 kids and 2 adults staying overnight every night. Hamilton County recognizes this bi-level as having 3 bedrooms. How are they all sleeping in a 3-bedroom house? The basement cannot be used as a bedroom because of egress necessities. I talked to a Hamilton County engineer in the building department, and he said that the Board of Health might be interested in this. Maybe this could be another avenue that the township could look into, even if we could not limit the amount of 12 to 21-year-olds that live in these group homes. The impact would, if we could limit the amount of 12 to 21-year-olds, maybe the impact would not be as severe. If in Legacy Residential Homes' own literature, they described these 12 to 21-year-olds as neglected and abused and at risk. The day after this young man was arrested, a new young man was moving into the group home to take his place. So what are we to assume that the new male that entered the group home of the following day is? Is he neglected? Is he abused, or possibly both? The kids that are at risk are now putting the people in the neighborhoods they move into at risk. So again, we would appreciate it if you here at Colerain Township would do whatever you could to limit or possibly eliminate these group homes. And I have contacted Senator Blessing and Representative Abrams, and they've gone back in contact with me, and they are interested in what's going on as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Linda Mickelson.
I'm Linda Mickelson, 2771 Burnside Drive, and some of my neighbors are here with me. We sympathize with what you're going through because down on our street we have a couple of group homes too. We've been here a few times. Some of the things that I do know, which isn't a whole lot, those group homes have to apply for an app. They have to submit an application to the zoning department. And for $150, and I've said this before, for $150, the zoning department approved the change to take a residential home and turn it into a business. There isn't anybody in this room who doesn't want young people to survive and be in a healthy environment, but to change our residents, our neighborhood, and put a business that we don't know how is being supervised. These homes have yards. Why can the township look into, shouldn't there be something that they can have a fence in the yard? Can't they have a picnic table out there? Can't they congregate in their own backyard? Some of my neighbors, we have a sidewalk between the streets. There has been some activity that we were not going to talk about here, but that she's had to call about. And it's unreasonable for us to have to keep living with that situation. Again, we want kids to be in a healthy, safe environment. These environments don't appear to be very safe. I understand, when you said that they're not allowed to touch the people, they're not. They can make a phone call to the police officer, but why couldn't they come out and say, hey, like this gentleman did, you need to stop that, or what are you doing to at least try some type of intervention without allowing it to escalate. So there's that. And again, can the zoning commission come back to the town, to the citizens here and let us know what did the people who own these homes, what information did they supply to you to, for you to give them an approval? I mean, for $150, all of us could open up businesses in the neighborhood. I could have opened up a garage. My husband could be working out of it. So, again, and then we also mentioned back in September all the police runs. And of course, now you have a new situation with a levy that didn't pass. We mentioned, maybe they should be fined, or maybe is there a way for the township to monitor how many times calls are being made there, so then they can report to whoever it is, the state or the Board of Health, that, hey, there's been 20 runs here in 6 months. We're going to start fining these people. I think maybe you mentioned 7 runs in a year or something was being looked into at the last meeting. I don't remember, or a couple meetings ago. So that's all I have to say. We're very curious about where the township sits and how we can stop more group homes from entering without there being a little bit more guideline to what is going on at those homes. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Tina McFarland.
Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Tina McFarland. I live on Breezy Way, 2669 Breezy Way Drive, and I'm basically here to support my neighbors. I am very upset about what's going on. I've seen several things, drove by. If I call the police, it'd be every other day. I know one of the ladies had something, she lives behind the house, and then some very nasty stuff was going on, and she was afraid to call because it's embarrassing. And so, I lived in my house for 33 years. My neighbor next to me 34 years, and we have witnessed some of these things. I've talked to Dan a lot, and I know you wouldn't want it next to you guys. It's just we want to find out what to do to stop this, because it's really a shame, because our neighborhood finally kind of got straightened out, and then it started, and it's just really scary, because I'm myself a widow, and I don't want to have to worry about it at night. I got an alarm system, I got it all, but sometimes that's not enough. And I feel bad for the police, because they've run down there several times. Officer Cordy's told us he's been there I don't know how many times, and it just seems like it doesn't end. And, you know, we pay our taxes and we want to be safe. And they are not watched. There's nobody. I see it in and out, blankets on their heads, back and forth, boys behind the houses. It's just unbelievable. So basically, I'm just here to support them.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Teresa DeMint? You're fine. The clock won't start till you get there. Okay. I don't know if, is the clock not working?
Projectors flashing on and off, so better.
Okay, thanks, okay.
Good evening.
Hello
Hi.
all. I hope your days were good. I live at 7211. I'm nervous as always.
That's okay. Pull them.
7211 Memory Lane. I'm talking about a nuisance resident at 7219 Memory Lane. Now, in the past year, I have gotten to know very well over 10 police, deputy sheriffs, and dog wardens because of the stuff that goes on in this house. Now, she is very abusive. On last August, she did hit me 2 times in the side of the head, and of course, the police were called, and, you know, I had my own going on with her as well. We came to the meeting, and supposedly, when we came to the meeting, then Dan called me the next day, thank you, and Officer Penley had contacted me, and by the end of the week, there was supposed to have been an eviction notice. And by October 31st was supposed to be her last day. Well, it wasn't. She was back actually the next day. And this went off and on for, gosh, about a month. And then there was about 4 weeks that we very rarely seen her. And she had also left the 4 pit bulls in the house alone. Now, she has a rap sheet of 72 offenses or counts on a rap sheet. A lot of them are, well, last February, child abuse. And the kids were removed from the home. That's one abuse. And she did hit me and stuff. Now, nothing has been done. I don't know if it's the landlord or where this has gone. I had been told that there could be fines against the landlord, but again, nothing has been done. Now, going back on now I know that there's, for 2024, the consecutive 12 months, if offenses have occurred, and there's supposed to be 3 of them, there is more than 3 offenses. As of February of this year, she was already arrested for assault. And I witnessed that, still didn't stay in the house. And on 3/10 and 3/11, I was in my backyard with my dog, and she came around and she started cussing at me again, and I won't say because I got in trouble the last time. But some of the words she was saying, and all I did was look at her. That's all I did. And she started on me. I just smiled and walked away. And another time, the next day, she hung her head out the back window and started yelling and cussing at me already, you know, why are you looking at my dog? You know, I shouldn't, as a taxpayer and a homeowner, I should not have to deal with this. Somebody is going to get hurt, and that somebody is me, because I'm out in my yard a lot. I'm out in my front yard constantly doing different things, and And some of these incidents that she has actually ran up full speed at me and has gotten in my face. And I shouldn't have to deal with that. The police have been called so many times, and they've been wonderful, but there's nothing that they could really do at some of those times. Now, she had gotten rid of the pit bulls. 2 of them are back. The one male pit bull actually stalks my dog from the other side of her yard, which I'm not, you know, what can be done about that, I don't know. But these dogs have actually tried to attack different people. No! Okay. But my last thought is, if this was your neighbor, would you feel safe? And as you can see, I'm in no shape for this. But thank you. I
Thank
really
you.
appreciate
Thank you
it.
for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have James Bennett.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Somebody broke the thing. I'm with Teresa, the next door neighbor. We're having the same problems. As Dan knows, she now has, as Teresa said, 2 pit bulls. She has been walking them on a leash when she walks them. But I think this is going to come to an end pretty soon because she'll start letting them back out again. But I can't predict that in the future. She keeps them in the backyard. They always, every year, they find a way of getting out of that fence line. Every year. And we just, right now, I have to go do something I haven't had to do for the last month or 2. I have to start carrying my sidearm out there when I do cut the grass and that, because I have been chased by 2 of her pit bulls last year. So I'm afraid of these now, because they do find a way out of getting out of the backyard, and they will. She was, as Teresa said, she was arrested for assault and battery. We witnessed that on February the 16th. So she's very violent, and it just causes us that we have to be on guard all the time. Teresa says she looks at her. Sure, I would look at her too, because I have to watch what she's going to do to me if I turn my back for a while. Okay. Now, I'm like this gentleman here. I can't have my grandkids over because of her foul language, which will start when the summertime gets warmer. She's out there with foul language on her telephone and so forth. So I can't even have the grandkids over. The adults are different. You know, we understand that, but the grandkids don't. And nothing's changed. We're back to 0 again. She's still there, and it doesn't seem like it's going to be hard to get her out of there. But we have to live with this, and it's like they say, all these groups here are having trouble because they have to, their life is not the same as a normal resident should be. I have one more thing to say. In the rolling 12 months, she has so many charges and so forth, and I think it was only 3 that is supposed to be in a rolling 12 months. Well, she's had numerous ones, and it will continue. And I just want to say that the red flags are there. Somebody will get hurt somewhere along the line. Okay. So I thank you for this, and I appreciate the chance to talk.
Appreciate you coming out. Thank you. Okay, Donna Ashton.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name's Donna Ashton. I live at 8771 Becky's Ridge Drive, part of Sovereign Estates. I didn't come prepared, but I'm looking like it. First, I'm sorry all those nice-looking gentlemen left because I did want to thank them for their service. I've lived in Colerain for 31 years. I've supported every levy, every school levy, and it is sad that it didn't pass. But I'm here to support our speed cushions. Jeff, I want to appreciate, excuse me, all of your emails with Ralph and explaining everything to us about what we can and what we can't do. But I'm asking for your support. I have a golden retriever. I walk her every day, all the way up Sovereign, all the way back down Regal. As soon as they open it up, I kid with my neighbors. Like, as soon as they go around Noel, I feel like I should hold the checker flag. It's like, go, and they go. And what the saddest part is today I was walking her, and a Northwest school bus who was apparently going to the middle school about 2 p.m. cuts through, and it was flying down Sovereign. No kids on the bus, but it was a school bus. And it's just crazy. And so, and I'm a very passionate person, and I'll just sit there and I'll yell at speeders, even though, you know, and my girls are like, Mom, don't do that, because these days you never know what's going to happen. But, you know, I just would appreciate your consideration for the cushions, at a minimum, stop signs. And then the other issue that we're having is, like, any side street that you pull out onto Sovereign, since there's parked cars, they're flying down and say, I'm pulling out on Becky's Ridge onto Sovereign, I'm pulling out in the right lane, they swerve over to get around the parked cars, and they look at you like you're in the wrong, flip you off, whatever. And when they're flying, it's going to be an accident soon. If not, you know, a child hit, a dog hit, a car swipe, anything. But pretty much that's about it. But I would appreciate your consideration for the speed cushions. And everybody else who doesn't live in Sovereign Estates who has been supportive as well, I appreciate that too.
Thank you.
So thank you.
Thank you. Ralph Gubser? Did I say that right? Okay.
Evening.
I'm back. Ralph Gubser, I live at 2870 Sovereign. Would it be possible to put the screenshot up again of the speed cushions?
Yeah.
Director issues?
Yes.
Okay.
Technical difficulties.
One of the neighbors kind of marked off the distance between Regal and where the new subdivision is, and he came up with about 2,200 feet. So according to the guidelines that I've seen on here, technically we could have up to 4 speed cushions. And I kind of like how you've got them between Regal and Wexler, and between Wexler and Sarah's Bend, and then there's one tentatively between Becky's Ridge and the new subdivision. Those are all fine. The only thing I would maybe see if we could change, there's one listed on Sovereign between Sarah's Bend and Majestic, and it's way up right next to Sarah's Bend. If it could be more centered in that stretch of road, that would be really good, because that is actually, my neighbor says it's 581 feet in that section there, and it's a long straightaway. And if they don't have anything between the one at Becky's Ridge and the one up at Sarah's Bend, that's probably 600 or 700 feet of straightaway there would not be a speed cushion in. So I know there's something about they want 40 feet between the aprons of the driveway, and if that's done for the people who live there so they don't have to back over them, I know as far as I'm concerned, I can't speak for whoever this is going to affect, but if it was down in my house, I wouldn't care. I mean, if I have to back over it when I come out of my driveway, you know, it's no big deal to me. So, but I do appreciate all of your support on this. And like I said, it looks really good. The only thing I could maybe propose is just more centering a speed cushion between Sarah's Bend and Majestic to kind of slow down any traffic on that long street stretch there. So that's all I have. And thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, Robert Johnson?
I see I'm on there. I can talk though. Can I come up?
Yeah, and I'm calling you.
I haven't, okay. Well, all right. Mine is not as exciting as you guys. I'm so sorry. I wasn't ready for that. I was like, oh, wow. I was sleepy at first till you guys came up. Oh, what? What's going on here, man? Pit bulls and stuff. I'm scared of pit bulls too, man. I see them, I'm out of there. But I got a issue with my house, 2864 Houston Road. I've been renovating it, and I don't know what I'm doing as far as fixing the house. But what I do know, it is really hard to find somebody dependable to do that type of work. Me and my wife, we just watch HGTV, and we thought it was, we give them the money and they do it. But that's not the case. We had a guy, actually we had about 2 or 3 guys. One guy got us pretty good. The other one, he kind of, because we were paying him cash, so there's nothing we could do. And stuff was coming up missing. We would buy things, and he'd say he was doing it, and it just wasn't going. But we did get most of the things done on the house. I had got a list ready for everyone to look at. Can I bring it to you?
Sure.
Thank you.
Thanks.
That one's a little bigger.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
I thought it was gonna be about $20,000. That's what I thought. I said, babe, we're gonna go ahead and get a lot. It's gonna be $20,000. Be all right. We got it. Okay, it wasn't $20,000. It ended up being, we're up to 50 now. So I'm like, please God, not anything else, because the guy who we had first, he went in and did the drywall. We said, yes, we got the drywall done. He didn't show back up, so he didn't finish it. So I said, I'm gonna get in here and I'm gonna do some stuff myself. I pushed on the wall and almost went through the wall. So I said, I don't think that's right. I don't think that's supposed to move. My wife's like, no, you're just big. I'm like, no, I ain't that big. So she, her father stepped in. He started helping us out. He had a guy come up there. Make a long story short, he says, I'm sorry to tell y'all, I can't finish this like this. This is a shab job. So I gotta take all this stuff down. If you guys want me to do it, I gotta take all this stuff down and re-put it up and see what's going on back here. So that's where we're at. We got all the floors in. We got all the bathrooms in. We need to paint on the inside, and we need to repair the siding on the outside. And but we did do the windows, the roof, the windows, the roof, all the doors, garage doors, plumbing, the HVAC system, it was messed up. it's really been like an emotional thing because my mom, she's got really old. Well, she's not real old, but she's just older now, and it was just kind of rough on her to. Sorry, guys.
Can you wrap it up in a minute? Can you wrap it up in a minute?
Oh, I can wrap it up in a minute.
Okay.
But to make things short, it was hard getting her out with her and all the stuff. And I didn't want her to have a heart attack with me, like, Mom, just get out and I'm going to finish it. So it was just a real rough thing to get her out and just start the project. It was just hard. And it's been rough. With me not staying here too, I think that really helped the guys get over on me. They couldn't check and see if they were doing something. And that's all I got.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you for coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, now we got administrative reports.
Sure. First up for administrative reports this evening will be Chief Alan Walls of the Fire Department. And I apologize for the projector issues, so we will go sans visuals.
Welcome back, Chief.
Thank you. I'm going to work on this for a second.
Okay, while you're working on it, it was a very nice night awarding all the wonderful firefighters, EMS, and first responders.
Voila.
Okay.
And thank you. All right, for my,
Oh,
how old do I look?
oh, it was Dana's
Spot
birthday
on.
tonight, too.
Plus 20 years, anyhow. My administrative report for tonight, February 2024 incident activity. Our EMS incidents were 733. Our fire incidents were 159. We made 30 responses into the Pleasant Run EMS contract area and no responses into the West College Hill Gulfway EMS contract area. We had one building fire of a significant amount in the 2900 block of Banning Road with an $8,000 loss. Our property value loss total for February was $9,800, but property value saved was $7.8 million. That $8,000 building fire was at West Union Square on Banning Road. To date, we have an 85% save rate, and our average response time for the arrival of the first unit was 4 minutes and 46 seconds, and first unit on the scene, less than 6 minutes, was 75.4%. And the next Thursday, we will be out at Squirrel's Nest Lane early in the morning. It'll be the 16-year anniversary of Robin and Brian's death. After that, we'll be back to Station 102 for a while, and then we'll be to the cemetery around noon on Thursday. We made a promise that we would never forget, and that's what we intend to do, never forget. And that is my administrative report.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Board. The next report will be Chief Ed Cordy of the Police Department.
Welcome back, Chief.
Thank you. February, the police department responded to 3,753 calls for service. That's 129 calls per day and an 11% increase compared to February of last year. For the month, we conducted 513 traffic stops. It's the first time we have hit over 400 traffic stops in 5 years, and we went over 5. For the month, we made 5 OVI arrests, 99 overall arrests. We had 4 uses of force, which involved 1 OC deployment and 3 taser deployments. We had no traffic pursuits and 1 internal investigation that's already been closed and exonerated. For the month, the busiest days of the week were, no rhyme or reason, Thursday and Friday between 8 a.m. and 9 p.m. Impact stats: conducted 109 traffic stops by that unit. That unit signed 7 felony charges, 12 misdemeanor charges. Those are all fresh charges that they made the arrests on while coming in contact with individuals with 36 felony warrants and 18 misdemeanor warrants. During the month of February, the impact unit seized 206 grams of marijuana, 3,035 grams of methamphetamine, 43.6 grams of fentanyl, 1,300 grams of cocaine, seized 4 firearms, all while assisting the road units with 266 details and having 11 canine deployments. That's my report.
Job well done, thank you.
Yep.
Up next is Assistant Administrator Mays.
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening, Board. For the month of February, for the Public Services Department, visitors for the month totaled 19,391. That one is very important. Heritage Park continues to be the park that attracts the most visitors, with nearly 14,000 vehicles entering over the first 2 months of the year. And just a reminder for everyone listening or watching that these numbers represent vehicles entering the park and not any other people entering through alternative forms of transportation, such as biking or walking. Bags of litter collected are once again exceeding our target, with a total of 58 bags of trash and 12 shopping carts for the month. And then finally, our staff has dedicated a few ribbon cuttings for our new playgrounds. On May 14th at 5 p.m., we will be doing a ribbon cutting at Skyline Park. So this is right before our Board of Trustees meeting. And the next one for Colerain Park will be May 28th at 5 p.m. We hope to see everyone there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Up next will be David Miller from our Development Department.
Mr. Miller?
Good evening. February is traditionally slow construction month, like our winter months are. It was the same number of zoning certificates as January. We had 4 BZA cases and 2 cases in the zoning commission. We only had 1 single family residence for a permit. But we had 25 other permits, decks, fences, accessory structures, etc. No solar projects. I guess no sun. And 11 commercial projects for a total of 37 zoning certificates. Interesting, just for the month of March already, the phone's been ringing a lot and a lot more interest. So I think that's just the nature of the business, and we'll see everything ramp up here in the spring. Happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Nope.
Yep,
Thank you.
good. You're off the hook.
Thank you. And Board, for my administrative report, address a couple of the items from citizen address. So group homes is one that was certainly discussed at length, and we've discussed at prior meetings. Next month, you'll see later on the agenda, we'll have a public hearing for some zoning text changes. So one of the things that was brought up is sort of the process. If somebody comes in and applies for a permit and they check the boxes, we don't have a legal right to say no, and so this will change what those boxes are that get reviewed as they go through that process for a group home. We have continued to be in the state, I think, or work with the state about these issues. I think someone had asked if data had been shared with them, and it has, showing the number of times that we've responded to a number of these homes in order to try to get the state to take some action as well. And then we're continuing to explore how our nuisance resolution works and how that may or may not address these properties. One item that I wanted to address outside of some of the items from citizen comment is actually that on April 8th, we have the solar eclipse, which is going to come through Colerain Township. One of our parks for certain, Heritage Park, is going to be in the line of totality, so you will be able to see a full eclipse. If you were at this building, you were in the 99.5% eclipse range, so clearly I've been thinking a lot about the eclipse. It hasn't been on my calendar for multiple years or anything like that, so I'm excited about that date. And if you live in Colerain, you're going to be lucky enough to see it potentially without leaving your home, depending on where you live. So encourage everybody to look up, but safely, wearing glasses that are specially approved for that. Regular sunglasses will hurt your eyes, I've been told. So With that, I'll conclude my administrative reports.
Thank you. Goes to trustee. You want to go first?
Sure. Excuse me. Thank you to the residents that showed up. The business with the group homes has been very frustrating, and it's, as Mr. Weckbach stated, it's something that we have been dealing with for a while. The state compels us to have these in our neighborhoods. It's not anything we can control yet. It's gotten to the point, when this first came up last August, and through a few phone calls, we've actually reached to the very top in Ohio, to the Department of Youth Services, with Stephanie Romano and Monica Kress and Deidre Grennan and Kim Kell, who came down here on February 29th, and we actually met over on Burnside. Burnside, that's where there were 8 police cruisers at 10:45 this morning. The state kind of waves this stuff off, and I intend on calling them tomorrow to let them know what's gone on at our meeting tonight. And please know this, the township is fighting these with these neighbors, and I see one of them here in the audience, and I think you know the level of activity that we've had. We had Chief Walls and several representatives of our police department meet with the folks from the state, and I'm as tired of it as I'm sure these two are, and Jeff, and most importantly, the neighbors that are putting up with it. These youth, they do need to get on a different path in life. I just don't think it's suited for residential neighborhoods. These are businesses, and they're destroying the neighborhoods. And to Annette and Jim, who are here, I came over to their house the day after this happened, and I watched a horrible video from their Ring camera. It shows a resident, a very unsupervised resident of the group home, and our friends from the state tell us that the supervision is there, and I would have to differ with them, and it comes to life on this video. This young man goes down the Springdale Road, pulls a rural type U.S. mailbox out of the ground, and just nonchalantly comes up Hawkhurst, and just out of the blue just picks a car and starts bashing in this lady's windshield. These do not belong in residential neighborhoods, to our good friends with the Department of Youth Services. And please know that Colerain Township, we're doing the best what we can within the law to get these places located where they really need to be, and it's not in our well-established residential neighborhoods. The home over on Hawkhurst with Jim and Annette, who were here and spoke, everything they have said is true. They were kind enough to invite me in their home. It's beautiful. It's an older home. They have done so much work on it, and they've invested all their life's resources into a place where they hope to stay for the rest of their days. And it's scary to look out the window and wonder what's going on next door with the managers there, who seem pretty disconnected from the rest of the neighborhood. And I've seen pictures of the group van parked right blocking 100% of the apron of their driveway, and it's frustrating. And they mentioned to me that you stopped over there too, Mr. Waller.
Yes.
And it's just, and I'm glad you were able to, because it is a mess, and it's the kind of thing we really need to address. As far as the business over on Memory Lane with the folks that stopped over here to talk about the pit bull situation, we did address that, and the landlord told us that he would get them evicted. I talked to that landlord again about a week and a half ago, and he actually lives in Arizona. I came to find out, I picked up that context during the call, and he's afraid that this lady is going to try to sue him for discrimination if he evicts her. And I was sent this long list of contacts with I'm trying to use my nice words, contacts with the court that this lady has had, and she's just not a good neighbor, and she's not a good tenant, and it's just, 99.99% of people are good, but boy, you get 10 or 15 bad ones in a community of 60,000, and it just really, puts an eclipse on the community. It's really a bad spot to just have 10 or 15 people just screwing up these neighborhoods for so many of us. And just for the record, Therese told me that somebody was over there measuring for a fence for the backyard. I guess she thinks she's just going to hide the dogs back there and not let them out. So On the bright side, I did go to the March 14th Fire Awards. We've got wonderful people on our fire and EMF service. As far as the speed cushions, manufacturing of asphalt doesn't really start until after April 1st, so the paving season is coming. I'm not sure when we are scheduled to have our road program this year, whether it's earlier in the year or later. I think those projects tend to get a better design life if you install them in the hot weather of summer, but hopefully we'll be able to get all that rolling, and thank you, Kathy and Matt.
Sure. I'll probably hit on many of the same points that Mr. Unger did. I did visit the Tenzing home and looked at the films and or video, and also copies of the police reports, which is interesting to see that if you go through, there's a different adult in charge every time you go, which shows you the turnover in that. I don't know that necessarily the folks are trained to take care of kids. I think they're trained to just be an adult in the house. And Dan has spoken many times about this, and so has Mr. Weckbach on. We're taking a multi-pronged approach to attack the group home situation. It's just not fair. I was kind of shocked tonight to hear that the Memory Lane situation was again a situation. I went over in late October, and it looked like the house in question was vacant. And I was told that they were moving out, and I guess they did not. So we will address that. And I think that's it. Yeah, and great work by Northbrook on the pollinator garden. It keeps getting better and better. And a gazebo would look nice as well. So we'll see what we can do on that. That might be something even where the community could chip in and build it up. And I don't know. I use the saw every once in a while so I can cut some board straight. And just a reminder then to that the Northbrook Cleanup Day, May 4th. I think last time it was like 8 huge Rumpke dumpsters. It was incredible. And I think that's it for me. Just have a good Easter. And the other thing is all this talk we have about speed cushions in police and things like that. That can work in addressing people that are breaking the law, but unless we understand in our hearts that we are on this earth together and that we have responsibilities to each other as well. I mean, it's frustrating to me to have these issues and understand that on a person-to-person basis, we just shouldn't treat each other that way. And I guess until some things change in this country, that's what we're going to have. And it's unfortunate, but that bus that speeds by, or I've seen so many ridiculous things on just driving within the last 12 months, like people turning right when they're in the center lane in front of me. I'm like, what is this? I mean, this is the most dangerous thing ever. And on Colerain Avenue, the people that run the red lights as they turn, and then the other people on the, I'm not going yet because I'm going to get smacked by about 4 cars, and then the horns start. And I'm like, I don't have anywhere to go. I'm stuck. So just a modicum of humanity out there would be nice, and help our fellow man. We're all in this together. I think that just needed to be said. So that's it. And
Once again, if anybody saw that video, you would be so appalled, and they're right. You don't want to live next to that. You don't want these kind of kids in your neighborhood. So I understand the plight on Hawkhurst and Burnside. And as you can see on later the agenda, on April 9th, we're going to have a public hearing. And our zoning department has been working diligently about getting some of these items on our zoning board to help restrict the amount that we have and what we can do for fines. So we are working on it. So April 9th, we'll have the public hearing.
Are you aware that the woman who owns the house on Burnside wants us, the community, to contact her instead of the police officer?
Oh, isn't that lovely? Yes. So yes, and we are all aware of how many responses we've had to these group homes, and we understand the menace and the speed cushions. I am sorry that people once again don't obey the law and don't care about people in the neighborhood and don't care about if they hit something, But I also wanted to do something a little new from what has been talked about tonight. I got the Energy Alliance calculations for the last year of Colerain Township. There's been a lot of misnomers and mistruths about what's going on about Energy Alliance. If anybody wants to go online, you can go on energyalliance.com, put on Colerain, and you can actually call them up and see how much you're saving on your personal house. But they saved the township, because of our aggregate adjustment that we have with them, $4 million. So that's another kudos to Jeff and the administration that works to try to help save the township some money. An average of $250 per household, so it's about a 25% savings for most of Colerain Township. So it is a program that does work, and if you'd like any information, please go to their website. And once again, have a great Easter.
Thank you, Board. The first items in new business tonight will be presented by Chief Alan Walls of the Fire Department.
Oh, we're still on page 1.
Good evening again. First item tonight is a motion to authorize the Township Administrator to execute an agreement with Stryker for Lucas Device ProCare service maintenance and repair for $10,584, and we recommend adoption of the motion.
I motion that we authorize the Township Administrator to execute an agreement with Stryker for Lucas Device ProCare service maintenance and repair for $10,584.
I'll second that.
Any discussions?
No.
It's a lot of money for repairs, but we got to have it, yeah.
As an aside, it's a 4-year contract.
Yeah, I thought.
So.
You're right, right.
Yep.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
And the next item here, it's a motion to authorize the Township Administrator to execute an agreement with Stryker for cardiac monitor and AED ProCare service maintenance and repair for $35,648. And we recommend adoption of the motion.
I'll motion to authorize the Township Administrator to execute an agreement with Stryker for cardiac monitor and AED ProCare services maintenance and repair for $35,648.
No second. Any discussion?
Yes, that is the very core service we are providing in the EMS is a lot of cardiac responses. So it's critical that that equipment is functioning and ready to be used.
Correct, absolutely. So as an example, if we didn't have this, we dropped a cardiac monitor. To replace one is several $1,000s. With the ProCare service, they give us
I mean, just to
monitor
have
plus
it.
they
We're
fix
living in 2024 when we can go save people who 20 years ago, when this equipment wasn't as sophisticated, would be dead.
Right.
So
Absolutely.
There's your deferred maintenance. Doing it.
no other comments.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Board. The next item is a motion authorizing the Township Administrator to utilize $33,845.22 of owner's construction contingency and to execute change order. Essentially, as we go through the project, there are going to be minor change orders where we're going to look at our owner's construction contingency, which currently sits at $300,000. In this case, change order 2, change order 1 was actually the full GMP, so it was just a nuance in how we started the project. But change order 2 is directly resulted from building permits and small changes that the building departments have required along the way. I'd recommend adoption of the motion. However, I would offer, if there is a desire for the trustees at a future meeting to discuss a limit that could be helpful to allow these things to be signed faster, that would certainly help the construction as we move things along. So I could certainly bring something else forward for a later conversation for a different item. But in this case, I would recommend adoption of this motion.
I motion that we authorize the Township Administrator to utilize $33,845.22 of the owner's construction contingency and to execute a change order for this item.
I'll second. And discussion, we're still in our budget with this.
Yes, so this will take owner's construction contingency down to 267.
Okay.
And with the way the project is shaping up, the original GMP was just for the pre-engineered metal building. That should be done and completed sometime in May. So there will likely be dollars coming back to the township once that is done, because there's a separate contingency for that piece. The bulk of the project is what we call change order 1, and so this is our part of our construction contingency. There's also additional contingency that Pepper owns, which is on their end for issues on their side. So
No other comments from me.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. The next several items will be presented by Chief Ed Cordy, and I would just recommend that before you all leave tonight, if you approve any noise permits, that those be signed tonight.
Evening.
Good evening.
Item D is a motion to issue a noise resolution permit to Club Trio Lounge. This is the first request for the permit for the 2024 year for this business. It is for a permit between May 1st and October 31st. Recommend adoption of the motion.
I motion we approve the noise resolution permit to Club Trio Lounge.
I'll second it. And those only go to 11 o'clock at night? I can't.
So this one
what's-
here,
I lost my screen here. No, trios.
it doesn't have a time on this one here, but the resolution is till 10 o'clock.
10 o'clock. I just
Yeah.
want, because when people call and complain, like Quaker State over at the yacht club that comes across,
10
just make sure at 10 o'clock.
No other comments from me.
None.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Item E, motion to issue a noise resolution permit for Quaker Steak and Lube. There's two on here, E and F. That's because there's different requests. This first request is for a permit for the first permit that they've submitted in 2024. It is a permit for every Thursday between April 11th through October 10th for their bike night events between the hours of 5 p.m. and 10 p.m. Recommend adoption of the resolution.
Chief, for each one of these, I'm going to motion to table. I've received a number of complaints towards the end of last year that when this come up, that we re-examine the noise resolutions for Quaker Steak, and that's just, I don't know if that will get a second, but I just want to get, I want to get more feedback because, and evidently you've
I've
got.
gotten complaints from the yacht club. That's why I brought it up. If there was anything we can do with this resolution about shortening the length of time.
So at this point, I have a motion to table the first resolution until next meeting so that we can examine, so we can get into what the problems are and maybe address them.
And we've had this, this has been issues in the past, and we've actually have a device that's able to determine decibels. And then we're able to take that, we've taken over Yacht Club multiple times in the past, and it's never been over the limits for anything that transpires at Quaker Steak, but I understand.
Yeah, it's a Thursday night and people go to bed and sleep and they hear the.
Right.
Just a nuance between this and the next items. I know we're talking a little bit about both. This item, they requested to start April 11th, which we would have time before our next meeting, before their request would start. The other item, they had requested to start April 5th, so that may impact bands or different things that they already have lined up. Not to say that that should change how we vote and how we move forward, but just something to keep in mind for the following item.
I'm not going to second your motion. I don't know if Kathy is or not.
All right, it seems like there's no second, so that motion dies.
I motion that we would issue noise permit, the way you have this typed out. I motion to issue noise resolution permit to Quaker Steak and Lube, the first one, the Thursday night one. Is there a second?
I would like to see it about the length of the time for Thursday nights. 'Cause
That's till 10 o'clock.
I know, but if we could shorten that time frame.
Well, so Mr. Solomon, if I'm not correct, if I'm right, if this doesn't get a second, this dies completely. If we table it, we can take it up next meeting.
I think that's probably accurate. I don't know off the top of my head. This is the first time I would have to look into that, but
I think that if it dies for lack of a second, they could bring it back at the next meeting.
I think you can always bring back another motion.
Okay. Then we'll,
For sake of tonight, I think it does die.
okay.
So I've motioned to approve it, and there's no second, and there was no second for your motion to table.
So,
Okay, item F.
okay.
Motion to issue a noise permit to Quaker Steak and Lube. This is the second request. This is for every Friday night, April 5th through October 25th, for their Friday night acoustic event. Be between 5 p.m. and 10 p.m. Recommend adoption.
Item F, I motion that we would issue a noise resolution permit to Quaker Steak and Lube for the Friday night events.
I'll second the Friday night ones.
And they're a good business that relies on having customers and selling chicken wings and providing a great place for people to be entertained in Colerain Township. And I've also gone over to Yacht Club and driven past, and you know the highway does tend to drown out a lot of noise. It backs right up to 275.
I hear it like it's in my backyard.
Well, you're on the
I'm
different place.
No, I'm farther away than Yacht Club. Oh,
Ms. Orich?
yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Okay. Item G, resolution declaring nuisance and ordering abatement. Multiple properties here. There's two of them on Brownsway Lane that share a parcel, but they're different. The properties, the housing is on different properties. So we have 2825 Woodhill Drive, 2823 Windy Way Drive, 2505 Burnside, 2870 Burnside, 10242 Crestland Court, 8232 Georgiana Drive, 10876 Gosling Road, 7511 Harrison Avenue, 3372 Harry Lee Lane, 9929 Laura Linda, 3220 March Terrace, 2665 Ontario Street, 9109 Pippin, which is also includes 2826 Lookover, 7175 Sheed, 3289 Sienna Drive, 3563 Springdale Road, and 7127 Thompson Road. Recommend adoption of the resolution.
So I'll motion to declare nuisance and order abatement at the properties provided in the packet the chief has just read into the record.
I'll second.
2870 Burnside.
Yes.
That's a vacant home that somebody bought to turn into a group home, and we did not issue a zoning certificate there.
That is correct. They were not in compliance with our existing zoning regulations to operate.
2870 is the vacant. 2840
Right.
was the one that was going to be built into a group home. So this is the vacant home that has been used by the 2850 and 2830.
Where the kids
as-
all go hang
it's where
out
the
at.
kids hang out.
So-
So this is the vacant where the kids hang out.
Is it like a clubhouse?
It's yeah, it is, Matt. And getting back to all the discussion from earlier, Chief, this is so people know we are working together on this, to just keep pushing obstacles off to the side. And we have a goal here. And we're going to get this cleaned up. And I don't want people to leave here or hang their head down that we're not making progress. It's just we have to operate within the law. And this is a great example of if the place is going to turn into a disaster, we're going to try to get them to come into compliance. So.
Yep, we've been working on this for a year and a half.
And it's been a while, and you've been over there pretty many times yourself. And the thing is maybe 4 years ago, the township spent, a couple $1 million back there, all new pavement, curbs, sidewalks, driveway aprons. And we've made a huge investment into that neighborhood. And we're trying our best to keep things going over there. So, no other comments.
Did we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just making sure.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
All right, item H is the first 7 junk motor vehicles. This one here is at 2746 Houston Road. It is at that address a 1984 black Chevy Camaro with no license plate. Recommend adoption of the resolution.
I'll motion to declare junk and motor vehicle in 2746 Houston Road, a no-plate 1984 Chevy black Camaro.
I'll second.
Ms. Orch?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Item I, resolution declaring a junk motor vehicle at 3561 Kemper Road. At that address, there are 4 vehicles: a 2015 gray Nissan Altima, 2011 gray Toyota Corolla, 2011 black Hyundai Sonata, 2015 black Kia Optima. Recommend adoption of the resolution.
A motion to declare junk and motor vehicles at 3561 Kemper Road. No plates, 2015 gray Nissan Altima, 2011 gray Toyota Corolla, 2011 black Hyundai Sonata, and 2015 black Kia Optima.
I'll second.
No comments.
Ms. Orch?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Item J, resolution declaring a junk motor vehicle at 8264 Georgiana Drive. At that address, there's one junk vehicle, a 2006 gray Acura TL HBC 3822. Recommend adoption of the resolution.
Motion to declare junk motor vehicle at 8264 Georgiana Drive, 2006 gray Acura TL.
Second.
Ms. Orch?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Item K, resolution declaring a junk motor vehicle at 8884 Pippin Road. At that address, there's a 2005 orange Infiniti G35, a 2007 blue Chevy Cobalt, 2006 black Mitsubishi Outlander, none of which have plates. Recommend adoption of the resolution.
Motion to declare junk motor vehicles at 8884 Pippin Road. All no plates, 2005 orange Infiniti G35, 2007 blue Chevy Cobalt, 2006 black Mitsubishi Outlander.
Second.
Ms. Orch?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Item L, resolution declaring a junk motor vehicle at 8944 Pippin Road. At that address, a 1993 pink Honda Del Sol, 2004 black Acura TSX, no plates on any. Recommend adoption of the resolution.
A motion that we approve the junk vehicle resolution for 8944 Pippin Road.
Second.
Ms. Orch?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Item M, resolution declaring a junk motor vehicle at 9391 Jericho Drive. At that address, there's a 2009 gray Chevy Traverse, JCE 1930. Recommend adoption of the resolution.
A motion we approve the junk vehicle resolution for 9391 Jericho Drive as described.
Second.
Ms. Orch?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Item N, resolution declaring a junk motor vehicle at 2539 Adams. At that address, there is a 2008 gray Chevy Impala JTL 4983. Recommend adoption of the resolution.
A motion we approve the junk vehicle resolution for 2539 Adams Road as described.
Second.
Ms. Orch?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you, Board.
Thank you, Chief.
Thanks, Chief.
Thank you, Board. Next items on the agenda will be presented by Assistant Administrator Mays.
Welcome back.
It's good to be back. Thank you. Board, the first item for public services is a motion authorizing the Township Administrator to execute a contract with J.K. Muir Corporation for the construction of the Blanchetta Outdoor Basketball Courts. Information can be found on page 99 of your agenda packet. The proposed project is the installation of a brand-new outdoor basketball court to include one full-scale court with 4 side rims to enable small area games. A 6-space parking lot and property upgrades to enhance the site is also recommended. The project was prepared for formal competitive bidding from January 31st through March 6th, 2024, with 3 bids received. However, 1 packet was incomplete and therefore removed from consideration. Staff recommends that the bid be awarded to J.K. Muir Corporation, which was the lowest and best bidder. Bid tabulations are summarized in the agenda packet. A contractual appropriation is requested in the amount of $104,630. Staff recommendation is an adoption and approval of the motion.
Motion to authorize Township Administrator to execute a contract with J.K. Muir Corporation for the construction of the Blanchetta outdoor basketball courts.
I'll second that, and for the public to hear, we had got a grant for that.
Correct. We have a grant to fund $50,000 of that project, and we are also seeking grant funding from CDBG dollars for the remaining $60,000.
And to just for 1 second brag a little bit, that $50,000 was a competitive grant nationally offered through Dick's Sporting Goods, which it's rare for us to be very competitive on those grants. So to be awarded that really speaks volumes to how good of a project this is going to be and how well we did in our application.
Good work. Thank you.
Yeah.
Sorge?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
The next item is a motion authorizing the Township Administrator to execute a contract with Atleta Construction for the 2024 road program for $2,080,060.61. Information can be found on page 286 of your agenda packet. Each year, staff recommends to the Board of Trustees an updated 5-year road improvement program. At the December 12th, 2023 Board of Trustees meeting, the new 5-year plan, including years 2024 through 2028, was approved. The 2024 project was prepared for formal competitive bidding between March 6th through March 20th, 2024. 5 bids were received. Staff recommends that the bid be awarded to Atleta Construction, which was the lowest and best bidder. Bid tabulations are summarized in the agenda packet. A contractual appropriation is requested for Atleta Construction in the amount of $2,080,060.61. Staff recommendation is an adoption and approval of this motion.
I motion that we approve the award for our road paving program to Atleta Construction.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yes, this came up earlier in another context. It's under budget, and that could be one of the contractors that you reach out to get pricing for these speed humps.
Sovereign Road, yes.
And I know Muir does that same type of work also, and there's I think Level and Excavating does paving work too.
Yep, and I think our goal is to turn that around as quick as possible. Realistically, just knowing how we set agendas, looking to be able to have some sort of bid responses. I would think, just given the fact that vendors aren't always the most responsive, to set an estimation or an expectation for staff to have something at the second meeting in April would be a reasonable expectation.
Okay.
And there are plenty of, not to limit it to those 3, but there's plenty of other asphalt contractors out there as well.
Sorge?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you. The last motion for public services is a motion directing the Township Administrator to sign the 2025 Stormwater District Level of Service and Estimated Service Fee Form. This information can be found on page 293 of your agenda packet. Each year, the Hamilton County Stormwater District provides the Township with minimum control measures to keep us in compliance with state and federal laws related to stormwater. Each household in Colerain Township pays $15.14 per year to the Hamilton County Stormwater District for this service. It is estimated that Township residents as a whole will pay $513,246 for these services in 2025. The Township has very real stormwater needs. It is spending $500,000 to be part of a stormwater district that may be able to provide more value for the money spent under a different model. While it does not appear to matter whether or not the level of service form is signed, not signing it would raise awareness of the issues associated with the district and the need to reevaluate the services that are provided. Staff is seeking guidance on whether or not to sign the 2025 Stormwater District Level of Service and Estimated Service Fee Form.
So you would need a motion to get it to the floor so we can discuss it. So I would motion that the motion directing the Township Administrator to sign the 2025 Stormwater District Level of Service and Estimated Service Fee Form to get it to the floor.
I'll second that.
So did we not sign this in a previous year also?
We, on and off, so I think last year we voted to sign it after tabling it a couple times. Maybe the year before we did not, if I'm remembering correctly.
Sign it, yeah.
And so it's been an on again, off again vote, it seems like, over the years.
What's your opinion?
You know, it's unfortunate that the stormwater district, the way it was set up in Hamilton County, limits our options. And as a township in this case, we don't have an option to do anything else. A big part of what the stormwater district pays for is the various permits with the EPA. That can be confusing to residents because they probably look at this bill and think, well, what do I get for it? Well, you get compliance with a federal permit. That's what you get. You don't necessarily get stormwater improvements or, you know, improvements to gray or green infrastructure. And that's difficult at times because every other community in Hamilton County that is not a township has the ability to opt out. And a large portion of them have, because one of the largest things that you need in order to remain compliant with that permit is an illicit discharge map. And so what a number of communities did was they got their portion of their community mapped in terms of the illicit discharge map and then opted out of the agreement. And now some of the other requirements that are required to happen, they've essentially got a free rider going on because the county doesn't, say, limit their communications and their educational components to just the townships that are left. It's still county-wide education and communication, and that's one piece. Soil and Water District provides a number of services in order to stay compliant with that permit. Again, those are provided county-wide, not just limited to the members of the Stormwater District. And so that creates a little bit of a difficulty where you've got township residents across the county, because we're required by the incorporating documents of the Stormwater District to pay these fees, but no one else is required to, and they can, in theory, achieve that free rider effect because of that.
So I see it on my property tax bill. I see that $15.14. I'm paying it either way.
That is essentially it, yes. So in the past years when we have not voted to sign this, we've even had them come out and had conversations, but they still move forward with assessing our taxes either way. This, if we voted not to sign, would be more of a just sort of public expression of how we feel about what we're getting versus maybe how others are also receiving some of the benefits.
Have we had projects that exceed the $513,000 estimated collection?
This group does
the
not.
county has done, that Stormwater has done.
This group does not do stormwater projects. Their solely what they do is maintain that permit through the EPA. You've got a separate assessment and fee, portion of which goes to Hamilton County Building, Planning, and Zoning, and that's to actually maintain the stormwater infrastructure that is county stormwater infrastructure. One of the things that I've advocated for would be something as simple as having a grant program where the townships as members can apply for, which would maybe encourage other communities to, for stormwater projects. We are part of, the West Branch of the Mill Creek. We've got some severe flooding issues throughout our community because of that, where some stormwater interventions would really help to alleviate those issues and prevent some folks from experiencing issues in their basements and what have you. But unfortunately, we don't get much say that actually carries weight, is my opinion.
I plan on voting no on this, even though it doesn't make a difference, because we don't get the value for the money. $500,000, we could hire an engineer and have some money left over.
Right.
They mostly, their budget, I think, the last time I checked, is limited to outreach and education. And then you have the free rider problem. Cities do not have to join, townships do. But it will change nothing this time around.
We'll still ever be able to pay their $15.41.
Yeah, maybe one day it will, because I know that 2 years ago when I said I was going to vote no, that they did at least come out. It's just keep grinding away.
I'm looking at it, and it shows $9.81 on mine. But nonetheless, it sounds to me like what we need to do is lobby the engineer and others at the Stormwater District to give us a little bit more for what we're contributing. But I don't know that this is I'm just reading through this, I don't know that this is the way to do it. But that said, I think I'm going to go in with the position of voting yes on it and go, hey, we're giving you this money, this needs to change.
Yeah, so if you look at the letter that they're asking us to sign, the $7.01, that is for what goes to the county, that goes toward the maintenance of the infrastructure. The other pieces all go toward the permit, right? So you've got $8.13 that goes explicitly to the stormwater phase 2 permit services. 92 cents that go to the sewage treatment system mapping. $1.16 that goes to local plan review, approval, and inspections. $2.37 to illicit discharge, and then $3.68 to district-wide activities, and a number of those are not limited to just the members of the district, just by the nature of it. If I put together a pamphlet about stormwater maintenance and I put it on my website, that's now available to anyone who wants to say that they use that toward their education, not just members of the district. So
And this is unique because water flows from one municipality into another. And
it
that's why
does.
we have a
And-
stormwater
and
district.
There's a very real issue that I don't know where it landed. It was certainly coming to a head with the Mill Creek pre-COVID. COVID, I think, put a stop to a lot of these conversations, but the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers had actually indicated that they were going to pull out of maintenance of the Mill Creek. And so there was talk about levying an additional assessment. This would be a county-wide thing through a judge on anyone who was in the Mill Creek watershed, which would mean that potentially Colerain residents would be paying for infrastructure improvements on the Mill Creek, which runs primarily through Sharonville, Evendale, City of Cincinnati, and what have you. My hope is that the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is still maintaining that and planning to, because otherwise I fail to see how it makes a lot of sense for Colerain residents to put more money into projects outside of their community. But that's just my 2 cents.
I have no other comments.
Ms. Orch?
No.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
No.
Thank you, Board.
Thank you.
Hey, Board, the next item tonight is a development item for a public hearing.
So on February the 20th, the Zoning Commission heard case CZC 24-1. So as has been discussed numerous times tonight, these were zoning text amendments to our zoning resolution to address some of the concerns that have been raised regarding group homes. And so one of our planner and development officers, Justin Becker, has been working very diligently on this topic along with Chief Cordy and his officers and with our code enforcement. It has been a drain even on our staff as well. And so what we are proposing here is a motion to set a public hearing on these zoning text changes that the Zoning Commission approved unanimously or recommended for approval to you. So the motion is to set a public hearing for April the 9th, 2024 to look at these text amendments. Recommendation is approval.
I motion that we set a public hearing on April 9th, 2024 at 7 o'clock for a text amendment for group homes.
I'll second that.
Any discussions?
None.
One of the citizens brought something up that these are actual businesses that are running out. So when we approved these in a residential area that we were permitting a business, so, what couple of the people had talked about, why did we do that?
It's considered a change of use. And so based on the text that is currently in our zoning resolution, it requires us to read the text, and if they fit within that, that's when we do an assessment of primarily some parking and then the distance that this applicant is from the next group home for children. And so it has to be in excess of 600 feet. So essentially those are the primary two guidelines that we go by. And so what we're trying to do is bring some guidelines that will give us a little bit more flexibility in being able to disperse them in a greater fashion, and to keep the ability to be able to communicate with the county to withdraw, an opportunity to withdraw that certificate if they violate the rules. So It's going to give us a little bit more power, and I think we feel good about the direction that it's going. Even since the Zoning Commission has made this recommendation to you, we've had some meetings with the state and county and feel like we have some more that we'd like to address, but we'll address those in a future meeting.
Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Orch?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you. The next several items will be presented by Assistant Administrator McElravy.
Hey, good evening.
Good evening, Board.
New face.
So the next item on your agenda is on page 297 in your board packet. This is the last step in the 2024 strategic planning and budgeted process. And this is to authorize the adoption of permanent appropriations for the year. The total net change in appropriations from temporary appropriations to this resolution is $2,349,781. Before folks go into sticker shock, I'd like to share that the vast majority of those funds, $1,576,875, are changes in appropriations to two of our TIF funds. This is the TIF for the Rumpke headquarters project and also the TIF for the Kroger project, and both of those projects have provisions in the bond documents that state that the amount that is raised is used to retire the debt, and then once the debt is retired, the TIF in those out years, in those future years, will be available for eligible public purposes. So in the meantime, to the extent that those funds are raised, they need to be used to retire the debt. So that is what a good chunk of this change in appropriations is. Hitting the highlights on the other changes, there is a $150,868 increase in the general fund. This allows for a variety of things, most notably the repayment of the deposit for 9929 Capstan, code enforcement success story, improvements to the township parking lot, and software that will better allow us to manage our TIF districts as they become more numerous and more complicated, particularly on the residential side. With the as these subdivisions are built out, there's a tremendous fluctuation in the valuations and what money goes where, and the software will allow us to manage that appropriately. The increase in Fund 2011, which is the motor vehicle license tax, is an increase of $100,000. That is for the road program. There is an increase in the fire fund, Fund 2111, of $83,088. This is for the installation of geothermal HVAC at the new fire stations. This is an expense that's going to be reimbursed through a federal tax credit, so this is essentially just fronting the money and will be reimbursed down the line. And this will provide some operational savings to the township over the life of those two stations. The increase in Fund 2231, which is the permissive motor vehicle license tax, is $284,401, and that's primarily for the road program as well. And then finally, increase in the Parks Fund, 2911, of $70,245 for repairs and safety repairs and other improvements to parks throughout the township, and we can get into more detail about that if you would like. Staff recommendation is adoption of the resolution.
A motion we adopt the resolution authorizing the adoption of permanent appropriations.
I'll second that.
Any discussion?
There's a lot to talk about, but not at this time.
Okay. Anything?
Nope.
Okay.
Ms. Orch?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. The next item on your agenda is on page 301 of your board packet. Speaking of TIFs, this is a resolution that would authorize staff to go to the state auditor to request permission to create 3 new TIF funds. These TIFs have already been through the approval process. We're getting to the point now where we anticipate that funds are going to start to come in. And in order to account for the financial activity with those TIFs, we need to create the funds. So adoption of this resolution will allow us to go to the state to get permission to create the funds to be able to do the accounting. Staff recommendation is adoption of the resolution.
A motion, we adopt the resolution requesting the auditor's approval to create tax increment financing funds for the Pottinger TIF, for Zillig, which is the new UDF, I guess, and for Dunlap Grove.
I'll second.
Any discussion?
No.
None?
No, none, sorry.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you. The next item on your agenda is on page 305 of your board packet. This is a discussion item. The board has had a practice of using any excess revenue in the general fund to save it away for capital needs in future years. The carryover balance for the general fund it was a surplus of $212,000. In the past, as we have built this reserve, it has built to a total of $1,175,633. Given the outcome of the election for the police levy last Tuesday, the staff recommendation is that there not be any dollars allocated to the capital reserve for 2024.
So I'm a person of habit, and I think that once you break the habit of putting money in the capital reserve fund, you're going to continue to not put it in. So I'm interested in putting in a nominal amount. I know it sounds silly, but to put in like 8 or 10,000 or the 12,000, just to show that we continue. I want to show continuous, that it's important enough to continuously put some money in, and that the 8 or 12 isn't going to cost a police officer or anything, and it's just a minor, it's a minor thing to show that it's important to us.
Yeah, if that's the recommendation, then I would suggest a motion would make sense. For
Right, I guess I'd like to hear from the other two.
Yeah, because it does say discussion. The item we approved just before this, the TIF item, and what that does is the change in value, for instance, on the land on Blue Rock that was built up from a lake bed 25 years ago, and now there's a UDF being constructed there. The change in taxes is substantial on that site, and that money comes to the township, and that's some of what we've talked about for years to start funding some of our police and other things that are eligible to spend the money on. Is there a percentage of that, Matt, that we should be putting in the capital reserve? Because this is what we talked about
Right.
2 years ago with the fire stations.
You can't take TIF funds until the TIF expires, so you have to wait 30 years before you could do that. So what you could do, and this is where the capital reserve weighs in, is you could take a project that's funded out of the general fund and maybe move it to a TIF. So let's say the Pottinger TIF, a direct public improvement that you could make as a result of that would maybe be an improvement to the skate park at Clippard Park. And so there you're maybe offsetting $20,000 of a general fund expense, which then would free up cash that then could be moved into the capital reserve.
Right, and that's, I realize there's an indirect route to get there, but there are new things that generate funds for us, and what we just approved immediately before this would be that. So just as it wouldn't be directly, but just to have a number in head rather than just saying $8,000 or $10,000, maybe we could use whatever that number is, we could arrive at that by saying, hey, this is going to generate $40,000 a year for the township, this specific TIF, let's say. Let's just, to have it in our head, say, well, let's just find 1% of that out of the general fund and put it in the capital reserve allocation. That way we're not shooting at $8,000 or $10,000 that we don't know where it's coming from. And as these TIFs grow and we get more of them from other developments, that would be the barometer that we use to fund the capital reserve fund.
Yeah, I understand that, but in the past we've taken out of the general fund surplus and I just want to continue, even if it's a nominal amount.
Oh, that's where this would come from. But I mean, how would we determine the amount? Let's use a barometer. Then I understand what you're saying. What I'm saying is, how do we come up with that number, $8,000 or $10,000? Let's figure out where that number's gonna come from. And to those in the audience, we don't get a chance to talk to each other about these things, and all the administration and everybody has these conversations, and we can only talk about it when we're sitting here, so that's why we're talking about it.
My assumption is that the TIFs aren't mature enough to be paying out large
Right,
amounts
well,
of
I'm
money.
just saying that's correct, but let's say the first year it's gonna generate X, just to use a barometer of how much should we be putting in the,
If I were to make a recommendation on a nominal figure, the surplus in the general fund was $212,000. If you were to just take $12,000 to put toward the capital reserve, then that would mean that the $200,000 would fall back to general fund reserve. That's a whole number.
so what you're saying is 5% of the general fund balance?
Always said don't do math in public, so I'm going to do my best not to.
Well, no, 5% wouldn't be 12,000, it would be
10.5.
5,000,
It'd be 10.5.
Yeah, so it'd be
Whatever it would be.
same ballpark, but that's just, this is me slicing and
Let's
dicing,
just say
doing simple
5%
math.
of what the excess is in the general fund, if you want to continue to fund this, or 3%, or whatever that number is. It
Well, I
sounds
think
like we're-
the context matters from year to year. I mean, you know, you might have a year when it's like, I don't know, 3 million for some, I don't know, some silly reason, 3 million. We got a grant of some sort. I don't know that I want to use that same percentage. It's just for this year, in this point of time, right now, I don't want to go a year without putting money in the capital reserve, because I want to continue that as a habit. It's like, it's like, you know, an individual saving money out of their check. They can't save as much this time, but they'll put something in because it develops those habits and that discipline.
But that's fine, what's your motion then?
So I'll motion, I'll take Mr. Weckbach's advice and motion that we put $12,000 from the general fund net surplus into the capital reserve fund.
I will second it.
Thank you. Discussion. I think we've had discussion.
Discussion before the motion.
Yeah. Well, there was a discussion, so.
Sorge?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Board. And finally, the next item on your agenda is on page 306 of your packet. This is a motion to approve a product support agreement with Secure Cyber Defense. This is a firm that we've been working with for quite some time now, and they provide critical support to us for the maintenance of our firewall, which is one of the building blocks for our network security. This is a 3-year contract. And the total is $18,400, and staff recommendation is adoption of the motion.
A motion, we approve the product support agreement with Secure Cyber Defense.
A second. Any discussion?
No, we need all the cyber defense we can get.
Absolutely.
And so anybody knows, the proposal's right here in the agenda, and I'm looking at it. It's 18,400?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorge?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. The next item on the agenda is a motion authorizing the Township Administrator to execute an agreement with Kleinger's for $28,000 for utility plans for the demolition of Sears. So as we continue to navigate on this pathway, we've put in an application for demolition work with the state of Ohio to receive a grant for this. Basically, what this would do is twofold. It would draw up in an ALTA survey exactly where all existing easements are, both for utilities as well as vehicular movement, which is a very valuable thing for us to have as we continue down some of the legal analysis here. But more importantly, it would show us exactly which utilities are shared utilities, which ones are joint, which ones are standalone, where we could actually separate utilities, where we couldn't, where we'd have to develop other plans if we were to demolish the Sears site in full. And as part of this, staff has been able to find a grant that would cover these costs and has applied for those funds, so we would recommend adoption of this motion.
So I'll motion to authorize the Township Administration to execute agreement with Kleinzers for $28,000 for utility plans for demolition of sewers.
I'll second, sorry.
I
Any
wanted to get it to
discussion?
the floor. Yes, I think we are about a month, we've had our disagreements on buying that, and that's fine, and it's time to move forward. I would really like to know what the status of the grant is, and we've applied for a grant from the Ohio Department of Development, and they might give us funding to demolish that building, but if they don't, and, you know, we're talking about all the financial issues we have tonight, we might be, the least cost might be to let it stand as is until there's some action with the other parts of the mall. As we know, back on February 7th, the owner of the other big boxes, the Dillards, the H.H. Gregg, and the Marshalls, I guess that's those three, defaulted on their bank loans, so ownership has gone to somebody else, or the control of that part of the mall, and maybe this is the time that something germinates or happens, and maybe we go ahead and do this survey and find out a month or two from now that, wow, somebody's ready to tear down much more of it, which I just really think I would rather wait until we find out if we got that grant before, the big grant for the demolition, but before we approve this.
Yeah, and without revealing too much of business strategy on this issue, I think that there's tremendous value in having this completed in terms of some of our legal work that we have coming up with operating agreements and what have you. So regardless of decision to demolish tomorrow or grants, I do think there's still tremendous
So
value.
there's an opportunity cost to waiting an extra 30 days.
There's that too.
Well, I'm asking.
Yes.
And how long would it take to I think I did read this the other day, and that's why I was prepared to discuss it. It says how long it would take them to put all this together.
Yes. I'm sure I can find it here while we're looking for it, but
It wasn't, it didn't come to me as being something that would take that long to do, like they could turn it around in 30 days for us.
yes, 10 to 15 days. And like I said, I believe that there's some tremendous additional value to this in terms of what's going to be the item after this and some of the legal back and forth that we know is coming.
One of the items in here says if utilities are non-metallic and tracer wires tape are not installed, all efforts will be made to locate these items with ground penetrating radar, but results cannot be guaranteed. So that's fine if we're using this just for the legal point of view of working out some of the issues in the 1970 covenant for the mall. That's fine, but as a practical matter, whoever ends up demolishing the building, you know, they still might have to locate utilities that, you know, we don't have as-built finished plans from the mall. I don't know where they went from 55 years ago that show where the utilities are, and we would have no way of knowing what modifications have been made in the last 50 years. So I would almost rather let the demolition contractor acquire whoever is selected acquire this service, because otherwise it's going to be a he said, she said if they hit an underground utility. Well, the township provided this, and now I've torn out this gas main. The township gave me this information, but if we, you know, had the awarded contractor do this, it wouldn't be a he said, she said on it.
Yeah, and some of the other things to consider with this item too are if, you know, we aren't awarded grant funding, this would show us exactly where we could disconnect utilities if the C.I.C. were to decide to disconnect them. Or it would tell us, hey, no, we can't disconnect water, but we could disconnect sewer, gas, whatever that is, because those are all just separate to the Sears property versus entangled with the other property owners. So there's additional value beyond just the demolition itself.
Understood.
Yep.
Well, part of the demolition bids that we would receive, they would probably have this already in their bid, correct?
This would help them in their bid by
In their
having
bid.
these plans. It
Right.
would not necessarily
I think
be
it's,
the
I think it's very valuable to have this information before we go anywhere, and then the next step. My personal opinion.
Prefer to just, if we think we're going to have an answer in late April on the grant, I'd be more inclined to, I would support it if we waited till we found out if we're getting that grant or not. Because if we just end up letting it stand, then I realize right now we've got the heat off, we do have the ventilation going, we've got the minimum security lighting. I think we've got that part of it under control to minimize our expenses there. But if the demolition doesn't happen and it ends up sitting for a year, then, you know, somebody's gonna go, well, that's a year old and, you know, we need to do it again.
Well, and as I mentioned, I do think this is critical to our future phases of legal work that we are working through on the site.
No more discussion from me.
You have anything?
Nope.
Ms. Orich?
I'm going to vote yes.
Mr. Unger?
No.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. The next item is similar to the last. This is a motion to authorize the Township Administrator to execute an agreement with Dinsmore and Scholl for additional legal work at Sears. Initially, myself, under my authority, I signed a contract with Dinsmore for up to $10,000. That was to perform the initial assessment of the operating agreements, where they stand, and what the pathway forward is for the township. This would allow us to continue on that work with additional phases of that work as we navigate our ownership in the parcel and start to entangle some of the operating agreements. I would recommend adoption of the motion, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
I motion that we authorize the Township Administrator to execute an agreement with Dinsmore for additional Sears legal analysis.
I'll second. Any discussion?
I believe this is, I've read the 204-page covenant. I had it printed out and read it, and there's just a lot of various entanglements in that, including in all the amendments since the 1970s. And I do think we need to have an attorney, we do need to have the ability to have an attorney analyze what the next steps are with this.
I agree completely, and, you know, if you recall, at first, we were approached by somebody with an $85,000 price, and we said no to that, and we've cut it down significantly and actually have an attorney on the job.
And we are where we are, and, you know, I do want to, we can't just sit here, we have to do something, so I think having some legal advice on where we've landed here is a good thing.
Ready?
Yeah.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. The next item is a motion to release a deposit of $15,000 for 9929 Capstan demolition. This is to Mark and Pam Mendenhall. The original agreement that we had with them to stay demolition of the site required them to perform a number of items. To date, those items have been complete in my review, as well as Stan Schmale, who is our code enforcement officer's review. And per the contract, any release of that deposit has to be made by motion of the trustees. And so I'm recommending approval of that release of deposit.
I motion that we release the deposit of $15,000 for 9929 Capstan demolition back to the owner and contractor, Mark and Pam Mendenhall.
I'll second. And the house isn't ready for sale because we're waiting for the certificate of occupancy.
Yeah, I think they're still waiting on their CO. When you look in the Easy Track system, they've had all their inspections. They've passed all their inspections. They just have to get that document.
It's looking good, and they're probably going to be asking close to 200 for it.
Looks amazing compared to what it was.
Did a great job.
And anybody that's familiar with it, the first time I saw it, you couldn't see it. It was all honeysuckle.
Oh, I remember on cleanup
There
day
was a,
going over there. I
Van
was
in the
with you that
driveway
day.
with flat tires. The asphalt had collapsed underneath it.
Couldn't see the
water-
floor.
The water had been shut off in December of
Buckets that were there.
2017. And they've made quite an investment over there. And the reason for the deposit was we had a demolition grant to knock it down, and they came in at the 11th hour and 59 minutes and bought it from the court, and they have proved that they would fix the place up as they said. So drive by and look at it. It's right over there on the corner. It's quite a thing.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. The next item is a discussion and potential action on 2864 Houston. I believe Mr. Johnson was here earlier tonight to kind of describe where they are in that property renovation project. And so with that brief introduction, I will open the floor for conversation from you all.
We issued this bond on Houston just a month or so after the Mendenhalls.
Yeah, roughly they were somewhere 20 to 30 days behind.
Okay, and the Mendenhalls are completely
They're completely done, yes.
So there is a problem with Houston.
So Mr. Johnson sitting in the office, can I ask a question? Do you live there?
No,
Actually, no, not
That's
right
in
now.
Georgetown.
I just got the inside to where my wife would want to stay there, you know, because it was, we had to do a lot of cleaning and a lot of, drywall, plumbing, electric. I mean, it was a job. But
Can you come to the mic? Yeah, is this okay, Kathy? we're gonna get this figured out.
Okay.
So the ownership is listed in Reynoldsburg, Ohio?
Where I live?
Is that where you live, is in Columbus area?
Oh, okay. Yeah,
So-
I do live there.
So I think we've granted an extension or two. What do you need to get finished?
Just the driveway and the outside. The inside is pretty much done.
Have you proved with any pictures that?
Yeah, I actually sent David some pictures earlier.
Okay, because when you said 50,000, I see 45, but I also look at this is trash, your loan payments, utilities, so I'm looking at a lot of just home ownership, just regular payments that you have to maintain a house. I'm looking at some of the labor payments, but the majority of on your list that you said are just common, house payments, insurance payments, and utility payments.
Well, yeah, I had to pay those things, and I also.
Well,
had to-
I know, I just am looking at your total,
Okay.
so I'm just wondering, I don't have my calculator.
So what is your timeline for, you said fix the driveway and what else?
The driveway, I had actually got pulled the permit and was going to get the driveway done, but it was too cold, and the guy said he could not warrant
Right,
it.
yeah, you do need to have improved weather to.
Right. So, I
So
couldn't
when
get
will
it
you
done.
get when will it be done?
As soon as the weather break.
Like by June 1st
Oh, yeah.
of
yeah,
2024?
Yeah, yes, June 1st would be fine. We want to be moving on with that by then.
And then was there anything else there besides I thought you mentioned two things. One was the driveway and,
Driveway and then the outside, it needs to be, the siding actually blew off in the storm, so I gotta get that fixed.
okay.
And the landscaping and stuff like that.
The outside needs a lot of help, yeah. Yeah, I'm just looking at,
So what are you looking for from us?
It's up to you all in terms of what next steps, if any, you want to take, whether that's an extension or other items. If we wanted to look at an extension through June 1st, we certainly can with a check-in, maybe May 1st as well, just to see where we are.
When is our second April meeting?
April 26th,
Can,
I believe.
I'm just speaking as one, I mean, you've driven down here today, and it looks like you're working on it to the best you can.
April 23rd, sorry.
Can we put this on would another month help you?
Another month would definitely help, but that June would be more, but, 'cause
What's
well, could we get an update? Can we just update you in 30 days, or would that?
Yeah, can you come here on, not that I want to have you drive down here, but if you're down here working on it anyway, I would say come to our April 23rd meeting and update us, and if you could put it on the April 23rd agenda, so if for some reason Mr. Johnson isn't here or anything, then we can take action that day. But
so exterior, we're looking at driveway siding and landscaping and cleanup of the yard.
Right.
So,
Yeah, I will essentially copy and paste this agenda item to the April 26th with
Okay.
some updates. based
26th or 20?
23rd, sorry, I don't know why I
Okay,
keep saying
what do you think, Matt?
That's fine, yeah.
Yeah, we want you to be successful, just we got to keep this moving, so.
Right. But yeah, I mean, everything else is done. The cabinets are done. The bathrooms are done.
Well, that's fine. Come back on, come here on April 23rd and give us an update.
Okay, okay.
But get it done. I mean, we're not trying to be punitive or anything. We treat everybody the same. Please keep your house in a livable, presentable condition, and it sounds like you're working on it, so.
Okay. We'll definitely get it done.
Okay, we'll see you on April 23rd.
All right, see you, man.
Thank you.
Thank you, Board. The next item is a resolution to participate in the Ohio 250 Communities to celebrate the 250th anniversary of America. So that's coming up here very shortly. The state of Ohio and the Ohio Township Association sent out a call for communities that may have an interest. The state of Ohio is attempting to find 250 communities that want to participate in this. Doesn't necessarily mean that there are grant dollars or things like that. It would just provide us with some recognition if we are selected as one of the 250 throughout the state. Helen would be working with some different folks from our community, including likely the Historical Society and others, as we get ready to celebrate America's 250th birthday.
Sounds fun.
I would motion to approve the resolution to participate in the Ohio 250 Communities to celebrate the 250th anniversary of America.
I'll second.
And let's go into storytelling time. When in 1976, when I'm not going to, because I know what year you were born.
You're younger.
I remember all the different activities that went on then. And I remember the American Freedom Train, which I have a box with old ticket stubs in it. I think I still have my ticket. It came down where all the, where Castellini and Caruso were in a park downtown. And I just remember all the celebration that went on with the nation's bicentennial. And this looks like it's no cost. I did look it up. I couldn't find anything nefarious with it. And so I will support it. I just didn't know if it was some type of, we have to do all these different things, but it just seems like it is just to celebrate our America's 250th year of independence.
Okay, history teacher. Nothing?
Nothing, no.
Come on, Matt, you got something.
I teach world history now. I can tell you about India and Pakistan.
So can my nephew.
Yeah, so can your nephew. Yeah, hopefully. No, I think it's a kitschy idea, and sometimes, I don't mean this in a negative way. The goofiness of this kind of stuff is very, it means something to people, and years later, people can tell stories about, what it meant to them at the time. I think it gives memories, and you can't measure that. So,
apparently, Dan still has them.
Yeah,
I have a box that has some ticket stubs in it, and I still have my ticket stub. I have a ticket stub from the 1975 World Series when Tony Perez hit 2 home runs in the 5th game. I was there. Anyway, this is way before you were even thought of, so no other comments.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
yes.
Thank you, Board. The next item is a motion authorizing the Township Administrator to execute an agreement with Communications Council, Inc. So as we've continued to explore our strengths and weaknesses, especially as it relates to emergency management infrastructure, we've identified some value in potentially partnering with a professional crisis communications firm. This would be for situations that are beyond typical. Right now, there's not necessarily an imminent need for engagement, but this is something that would allow us to build a relationship with one company so that when those situations emerged, we'd have someone that we didn't have to spend the first several hours getting to know. If you need an example of when this has been used in the past, we've used crisis communicators when we've had some issues resulting in police activity at schools. Those can be very contentious. They can get out of hand quickly with media portrayals and things like that. And I believe that the crisis communications efforts that happened there from the outside counsel were extremely valuable. In this case, Communications Council actually is an attorney as well, so they provide a little bit of a different perspective. Nothing against Scott, but most attorneys will tell you to just say nothing, which I think is probably a fair statement. So for what it's worth, the owner of this firm, Mark Weaver, he is very engaged in a lot of issues. He speaks publicly on these topics. He was just at the Supreme Court, invited to sit in the gallery for several key landmark decisions going on in this space as well. So I would recommend adoption of the motion, and I am available for any questions that you all have.
Is there a price for this?
Yeah, I didn't see one.
There's not a price, so that's one of those things that we would use them on an ad hoc basis. It'd be billable hours and what have you moving forward. So,
Do we know what their billable hour is by any chance?
yeah, it varies depending on who you talk to in the firm. So Mark's is, I think, $700 an hour. So because he's an attorney, $750, and then as you go down the list, it gets substantially cheaper. So it isn't necessarily something that we would use right away, but it is something that I thought was worth bringing to the board as we, again, look at our gaps in what we have.
I guess there's no, I guess we have to bring a motion first before we discuss it, correct?
I'll motion to authorize the township administrator to execute an agreement with Communications Council, Inc.
Okay, I'll second it. Now, so I think it's nice to have somebody like this if a crisis does occur, but it's not, there's not an initiation, or it's just like you said, ad hoc, so we're not putting out
as
any
needed.
money, we're just building a relationship right now.
Yes.
So what would be the barometer if something came up? Would you just go ahead and call them, or would you call the board president, or what would
I
you
would
do?
likely talk to all three of you individually first, like I always do when there's a major emergency, and depending on how severe it is, I would probably share with you all my recommendation. Naturally, any one issue, I cannot do anything that would exceed my $10,000 spending threshold, so
We would have to come vote then.
it would be higher than that, yes. So
I mean, if there was that type of township emergency, I would expect you to call an emergency township meeting, because we have a PR person, and we have Mr. Love, who handles other items for us.
yeah, I mean, this is a very unique and nuanced type of communication. And that's nothing against our existing resources. This is just very nuanced. This is all that these folks do. They don't do other types of.
So it's an attorney that would know what the, not that there's anything wrong with Scott.
I mean, let's
It's
say
an
you had.
attorney who would know what to say in a.
Yeah, let's take for example like East Palestine and the train derailment, right? There are probably things that community would have wanted to say. I don't know if they had an emergency communicator on staff or not, but the way that you get that message out, what you say, you have to do it in the right way to not expose yourself legally, but that you're providing the right information in order to dispel whatever myths are out there and to make sure that the folks know that they can look to us as the trusted source of information.
Can you get as a part of this contract, can you get a certificate of insurance from them naming us as an additional insured?
I can ask them. I don't know if that's typical or not. I'm trying to think through a typical.
If they get out, if it's somebody that's going to legally speak for us, and they get out and say something incorrect.
The ones that speak, they would provide all the counseling as we did that. I'm not sure that we've gotten certificates of insurance from other consultants or firms that we've used.
Just asking.
For those types of services.
But right now, there's no cost to it,
At this exact moment in time, no.
and you don't anticipate any cost in the.
Potentially some costs, startup costs in terms of that initial conversation, but that may be it, so.
I have no other. This is something you want.
This is something that I think would provide some tremendous value to us to supplement our existing operations. It may feel and seem a little nebulous, I'm sure, but this is just from different conversations I've had with different folks across the country.
In the initial get-to-know-them conversation, that's not something billable.
Not necessarily, but I can ask them that before we have the conversation.
How long is the contract for?
I believe it'd be 2 years, so it would lock in rates for 2 years.
And we can use them 0 times in that 2 years.
We could use them 0 times. We could,
Hopefully we.
Does the contract prohibit us from using somebody else?
no,
Okay.
All right. I think it's a good idea. Weaver's known nationally, his firm's known nationally for putting out fires and crisis communication. And it's important, I think, to get, when there is a crisis or an emergency, to get the right message out. And he has a unique ability to do that and has been very successful. I mean, when people get in trouble, they go to him. When they have, and trouble is in a big, huge problem that needs to be solved. He understands the media, he understands the media law.
And this is primarily for a catastrophic event that might happen, such as what happened in Baltimore today or what happened in eastern Ohio a year ago, that type of thing.
All right?
Sorge?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you, Board. And the last item on the agenda will be presented by Assistant Administrator Mays.
Sorry to keep you up so late during hockey season.
Hey, we're okay. We're at the end of hockey season.
Oh,
so we're good. Okay, Board. The item K is a motion to authorize the Township Administrator to execute master services agreements with several firms for the provision of professional services related to architecture, engineering, surveying, planning, landscape architecture, urban design, and related services. Information on this item can be found on page 325 of your agenda packets. On February 13th, 2024, the Board of Trustees unanimously adopted a motion to release a request for qualifications for engineering services. The Township received 9 responses, and staff determined that all responsive firms were qualified. Master agreements will be presented to the firms that are listed in your agenda packet. The staff recommendation is an adoption and approval of the motion.
I motion that we authorize the Township Administrator to execute a master services agreement with several firms for the provision of professional services related to architecture, engineering, surveying, planning, landscape architecture, urban design, and related services.
I'll second. I need
This is just to have them
Just to him on the list.
on deck. Okay.
It'll, actually, adding these 9 will increase our list to 21 pre-qualified service agents, so that's very helpful.
Nice.
No other comments from me.
Sorge?
Kathy?
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you, Board.
Thank you, Board. We have no old business, but we have several consent items, which I will read. There's a contract with Dinsmore for the Sears operating legal work for up to $10,000. Contract with Springbok for healthcare reporting, that's no cost. Contract with Northwest Local School. This is a minor modification to acknowledge previously agreed to terms. Contract with Hamilton County EMA for a rave alert system for $4,000. A contract with Zix for some Microsoft Office licenses for $52.42 or 44 cents. Settlement agreement with Colerain Township versus Gary Bird, where the Birds will be paying the township $4,000. A promotion to Mechanic 2 of Corbin Rouston at a rate of $26.44. New hires for seasonal maintenance workers and public services at a rate of $15. Those employees are Cameron Schmall, Cody Brown, Michaela Baldwin, and Justin Mativa. A new hire of a part-time facility maintenance worker, that's Timothy Keys at a rate of $17 an hour. New hire of a summer camp director, Greg Insko at $17 an hour. New hire assistant summer camp director, Brady Bowden at $15 an hour. New hires of summer camp counselors at $12.50 an hour. That is Elena Ward and Olivia Howland. A donation acceptance in police in the amount of $2,000.34 from the Cincinnati Moose Lodge, and an equal donation in fire and EMS from the Cincinnati Moose Lodge. And I would recommend adoption of all consent items.
I motion that we approve the consent items as presented.
I'll second. Any discussion?
The RAVE system is part of the software for emergency communications during.
Yes, that's a mass notification reverse 911 system.
I was looking through that. I wanted to make sure people knew what that was.
It's a rave?
It's not quite a rave.
It's a, for emergency management from Rave Wireless to Lynn Computer System for the provision of public mass notification system services.
All right.
Ms. Orich?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Mr. Waller?
Yes.
Thank you, Board.
Okay, you get to speak.
Okay, I'll be very brief. 142 public records requests so far this year,
Trustees.
10 are active or still outstanding, so we're working on those. And the February financials have been completed and are on the website. That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Is there a need for an executive session?
Not unless you all have a desire.
No. I do
I'll
not.
motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Ms. Orch?
Yes.
Mr. Unger?
Yes.
Yes.
So we are officially adjourned at 10:31 PM. Thank you.